Hey everybody, how we doing? Whiskey heads, happy Whiskey Wednesday. Thanks for coming in tonight on a really cool live stream. I have a couple special guests waiting in the backstage area, but want to thank everyone for coming in tonight. We in my quest to give you guys some really fun content, during the quarantine and try to learn some things as well. We have a great duo that's going to be talking some Westland Whiskey, which is a distillery out in Seattle that's making some incredible American single malts. So I figured it'd be kind of cool to learn more about, how they're creating their whiskeys. They're using some really interesting malts to create their whiskey. They're also being unbelievably transparent. If you check them out on the website, it's just a really interesting story and what they're doing. So can't wait to get into it with you guys. Before we welcome them on, I do want to say hi to some people that were hanging out in the chat nice and early. We have Beindorff, Brian Butler, Ryan Tarpey. What's up, guys? How you doing? Who else we got over here? Brian Brennicky came in early. Nice to see you, Brian, always. Howdy, you Whiskies here. Let's see. Wildlife and Whiskey, nice to see you. The Draminator is here. What's up, man? Nice to see you. DMCKY is here. What is up, man? Bayou Drams. Nice to see you. Karen B. Ford. Hello from Nashville. Nice to see you. Steve A. is here as well. The Wrench. Trev Wilson. Nice to see you, man. Linux Cat is here. What's up, Donnie? Slade Gulledge. Charles Ashworth. Jason Patton. Hey, he says this is his first live stream. Welcome here, man. Always like to see you guys. Cap and Make It Happen is here from Texas. You guys in Texas should know a good thing about some American single malts. We have Eric W, DC, Andrew Spurrell, Cameron Jordan. Welcome you guys in from Bourbon Sane stream. He did another great night of streaming. Zeb Taylor, what is up? Mark JG is here. Alfredo L. All right, bunch of you guys coming in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to our two guests, and then as normally, we'll get into the distillery, what they're doing. We're obviously going to taste all three of these whiskeys, get into how they create it, and then we'll leave some questions on for later. So really appreciate you guys coming in. So first, let me get this all ready, and let me welcome in Erica and Chris from Westland Whiskey. How you guys doing?
We're good.
Yeah, doing all right. Thanks for having us on.
Well, I don't know if you guys remember Erica. Erica was on the channel a little while back. We were talking about Brooklotti, but she also represents Westland. And then we have Chris. Am I saying this right? Is it Riesbeck?
Yep, Chris Riesbeck.
Chris Riesbeck. He's the global commercial director for Westland Distillery. Thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Man, I'm happy to be here. I've got to start by saying there is a fantastic comment in the live comments that I am like giggling about. I'm gonna point it out because it's like it is so good that it's worthy of it. A guy by the name of Ryan Parker goes, "What the hell is Fred Minnick thinking running in your time slot?" The all-time greatest post. I absolutely love that. That cracks me up, man.
Oh my god, yeah, Ryan. Here it is. Yeah. I actually went to Fred Minnick's stream, and he goes, "Who's ready for this?" And I wrote in there. I said, I'm interested in what you're doing, but I'll join in after my stream. So thank you to any of you who left the amazing Fred Minnick to come here.
I love Fred Minnick, but I'm sure he'll be okay. I think he's going to survive.
I think he'll be okay. Yeah, I'm sure he'll have a very good viewership. Ben Stahl, Roscoe P. Coltrane, thank you guys so much. So, all right, so Westland is, for those of you guys that I did say a little bit earlier, but for those of you guys coming in, Westland Distillery is a distillery out in Seattle, Washington, the great state of Seattle, or the great state of Washington, I should say, which is creating some really,
that's fine.
Yeah, which is creating some really great whiskeys out there, and they specialize in American single malts. They do a lot of different things when it comes to using different types of barleys. You guys are extremely transparent, which I love, which we talked about. So I guess Erica and Chris, I'll give you guys a chance to kind of introduce yourselves and tell us what you kind of do for Westland, and then Chris, you could go into how maybe a little bit more of the history of how Westland got started.
Sure. Yeah, Erica, you want to go first?
Ladies
cool.
first.
Yeah.
Ladies first.
Ladies first. So, hey guys, thanks for having me back. Obviously, Jason, huge shout out to everybody that saw the previous one with Bercolotti. It's good to be back. So, I essentially work on the Remy Cointreau side, and I've been working with Westland since we kind of took over the distillery a few years ago. So, excited to kind of talk to you guys about all things Westland and geek out a little bit more, talk about malt, talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. But excited to also have Chris Riesbeck on with us this time. He's a great person to know. And if there's anybody that I know that is geekier than I am when it comes to whiskey, it is this guy right here.
Anything that pays the bills. I used to make that terrible joke, it's important to be good at something if you like to eat, because if you want to eat regularly, you need to find a way to kind of set the table pretty regularly. So Jason, as you mentioned, I'm Chris Riesbeck. I'm the commercial director over at Westland. I jumped on with the team. It's going on 5 years ago now. Originally, when we were sort of still an independent distillery, obviously based out of Seattle, I've always kind of handled the eastern half of the U.S. And then a couple of years ago, they promoted me to global commercial director. And I guess a big part of what my role is on a day-to-day basis is helping to develop strategy for each of the markets that imports Westland, along with working with our team like Erica in market to make sure that, we're not only telling a compelling story, but really trying to engage people in not just Westland, but also the category of American single malt that we're kind of leading the charge on.
Yeah. So to that point, let's be honest here. So for centuries, for eons and eons, Scotland was the domain for single malts, right? Yep. You guys are I think you guys are pretty early on, if I understand from, what you guys are doing and bringing the single malt to the United States, but you're trying to do something new and different, something for you guys, but also maybe doing something familiar from the Scottish style. So can you kind of talk about what the mindset was when Westland first started and how that kind of guided your mindset in creating your whiskey?
Yeah. So let's start from the sort of the basics. So we started back in 2010. Westland as a distillery exists because of two people. It was a guy by the name of Matt Hoffman and his sort of high school friend, a guy by the name of Emerson Lamb. Matt is one of those guys that he's solely focused on the concept of sort of flavor development. So, when you're in a West Coast area, especially in the Pacific Northwest, where we don't grow corn natively, we're not a big rye state, obviously. We grow barley and we grow wheat. It's why there's always been a really sort of large and frankly pretty compelling brewing industry. When Matt started this thing, the whole idea was, well, how can we make whiskey that is going to be a bit of a mirror to the Northwest? How do we do something that people are going to look at it and go, oh, that makes sense. That's exactly what a distillery in, Washington State in the greater Pacific Northwest should be doing. It would, to your point about it, sort of the domain of Scotland. I always find that kind of interesting because, yes, Scotland's been doing it longer, but to be totally transparent, you look at any other country on the planet and you just say the word whiskey, the only country in the world that doesn't assume single malt is the U.S. This is the only place. Everywhere else that you go around the world, you go to Japan, go to India, go to Australia, Singapore, France, all those places, when they hear whiskey, they immediately assume single malt because, again, malted barley and the ability to use it is pretty ubiquitous all over the world.
That's a really interesting point because you think Indian, you definitely think you're looking at Paul John whiskey. You got Amroot. You got a bunch of even Irish whiskeys. Sometimes go single malt as well. So it really depends on what you're drinking. But yeah, that's a really good point. I think bourbon is extremely, like you said, ubiquitous to the U.S. and Scotch or single malts kind of have a little bit more of a universal feel to it around the world.
Yeah, global feel for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about agricultural systems that exist, to a certain degree, whiskey is the result of, it's a byproduct of the agricultural industry, right? It's, long before a distillery made interesting whiskey, a farmer did it as a way to add value to leftover crop or leftover harvest from his crop cycle. All we're doing at Westland is we're trying to utilize grain that is localized to the Northwest. It's not a matter of saying, hey, we do it better than Scotland. It's not a matter of saying that we should be doing this more than anyone else. It's a matter of saying that the quality of the whiskey that we can produce in the United States, in the Pacific Northwest, at our distillery is equal to, arguably, the quality of any sort of single malt you can make anywhere else in the world, especially from a raw materials perspective.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that so let's talk about your malt, because I'm looking at the Westland Distillery Handbook here, which is amazing. Yeah, this is the cheat sheet. So
who gave you that?
I don't know, Erica. So somebody I really know that's has a window on the stream right now kind of sent this along. But so you guys use a good amount of different types of malts, which is what I think gives it that unique flavor. And we'll obviously going to be tasting these and get into these. So you have Washington Select Pale Malt, Munich Malt, Extra Special Malt, Brown Malt, and Pale Chocolate Malt. And also you have a wood program. You're using different types of woods and casks to age as well. But tell us about the mindset to getting into these, using these different types of malts or that specific combination.
Yeah. So, to kind of back up, because I think this is an important point of sort of reference to make, is that what we're doing, if you were to go to any brewery in America and ask them how they're making their brown ales, how they're making their porters, their stouts, they would point to a recipe pretty similar to what our 5 malt is and go, well, that's exactly what we do. Now, before I came and worked at Westland, I worked for almost a decade for a Scotch whiskey distillery, and the way that we tended to think about barley was that it was a way to generate alcohol. It wasn't really about the flavor of what it produced, because, like most of the distilleries in Scotland, we were all using, basically different commodity varietals of the same thing, pretty much standard 2-row pale malt. The reason people love standard 2-row pale malt is because it's relatively high in fermentable starches and sugars. It grows like a weed, and it is relatively disease resistant because it's now sort of in the commodity cycle and it's engineered to be like that.
And from a bourbon side, barley is used. It's in bourbon, but like you just pointed out, barley is used more for the enzymes, not so much. It adds a little bit of flavor, but mostly you're using for the enzymes to convert it, convert starch to sugar.
Yeah, you're looking. So in the bourbon industry, you're looking at it, and you see barley, and you go, "Oh, that's alpha. That's alpha amylase and beta amylase." I don't think anyone actually really cares about it, other than the fact that maybe it softens the palate a little bit, like the way a weeder would, or things like that.
Yeah.
For the single malt industry, just to be clear, obviously our mash is 100% malted barley. Now, when we talk about the idea of 5 malt, that 5 malt is built as a single distillate type. So at the distillery, more often than anything else right now, we distill 5 malt, which means we take those 5 types of malted barley you spoke of, the Washington Pale Malt, the Munich Malt, the Briess Extra Special, Pale Chocolate, and Brown Malt. We mash that, ferment that. Oh, there you go. That's a perfect shot. We mash that, ferment that, and distill that all as a single distillate type. And by doing that, that creates sort of I would say it's sort of our house profile there. Now, what's interesting is, just like a brewer would understand that the more roasted a malt is, or the sort of the deeper the color is, or the greater the overall roasting profile, the less actual fermentable starch and sugar you're going to get, because the majority of that has been carbonized in the kilning and roasting process. So for us, we need that Washington State Pale Malt. It's roughly 70% of our mash, and that Munich Malt, because they have full self-conversion power. There's enough degrees Lintner in that. Those types of malts produce more than ample amounts of enzymes to create full conversion for everything that's left in that. When you start getting into things like those heavily roasted malts, like the brown malt and the pale chocolate malt in particular, those things, they don't really have the ability to do that. And honestly, the types of sugars that you're more often than not going to see from them are going to be those really long chain. So for the most part, brewer's yeast, especially what we use, can only really consume 3 types of sugars. It can consume glucose, single sugar molecule on its own. It can consume maltose, 2 sugar molecules together, and it can consume maltotriose. So obviously 3 of them put together. The minute you get to 4s and anything longer than that, a majority of that type of yeast can't eat that stuff, which is, in the brewing industry, it's a great thing, right? It's what gives a stout like that really nice sort of heavy mouthfeel. It's all those unfermented large chain sugars, that are the things that you really want to have there. For a distillery, obviously, there's really no real importance to having those sugars. That mouthfeel doesn't get translated through the distillation process, as you can imagine. But what more important than anything it does, it creates flavors that do get transferred a bit through the distillation process. So if you were to taste our sort of our wort, our 5 malt wort before it goes into the fermenter, it's crazy how strong that coffee and dark chocolate flavor is. It's frankly, I mean, Erica's had it a few times. Erica, how would you describe it?
Oh, it's delicious. It's like a toasted oatmeal-y, like, I don't know, like I would drink it straight. I mean, it's obviously not like a good thing.
It would save us a ton of money if we could sell that straight.
Right, exactly. Absolutely we would. But I mean, we've all probably been to multiple distilleries where we've taken something like that out of the, thing, and you're like, "Ooh, it's like tastes pretty much the same." But it blew my mind the very first time I ever tasted it at Westland. And it was before I even worked for the company. I was like, holy crap, like I can actually taste different things in this. Like it's wildly different. So yeah, couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I'm so when you get to try different barleys and stuff, and I've been to Stranahan's a couple times being in Colorado. I've tasted some of the different they use I think 3 different malts to create theirs, 3 or 4 different ones. And I think it's interesting when they use the combination of malts to create these different flavors. And I will say that when I tried the sherry, which we're going to try these soon, I did notice a very big chocolate note in there. So it definitely makes sense how those barleys are definitely making a big impact on the whiskey.
Yeah. It's, so I'll point out, obviously Stranahan's out in Denver, another huge brewing town. They've got a native barley industry sort of localized in the state of Colorado. You're going to, I think, not that there is a hallmark of what American single malt should be, because intentionally it should be open up enough where producers are comfortable to make something that they feel localized. But I do think that especially Northwest Rocky Mountain states, the single malts that you're going to see from those regions are going to have a pretty heavy brewing influence, because obviously we've got loads of that available to us.
I got a question here from How Do You Whiskey. I don't know if it's a question or a statement. He says, the difference between 2016 and 2017 Peat Week, the 17 is way darker, but I love the 2016 bottling a little more. I wouldn't expect that based on the color. That's
man, it's interesting they use the word darker. Obviously, the color on the 17 is darker than the color on the 16.
Yeah, but 16 was lighter, but
yeah, I would say that the 17 is a darker profile as well. So the 2016 was exclusively, if memory serves correct, and forgive me if I've got this a bit off, but I don't think I do. The 16 was mostly refill cask, ex-bourbon and refill cask. That 17 is probably my all-time favorite Peat Week we've produced, with the exception of maybe this year's that was killer. But that 17 is exclusively first fill, new white American oak that's all been air dried. And I remember the first time I tasted that bottling, I was like, this smells and tastes just like smoked peanut butter.
Oh, smoked peanut butter.
Yeah, it is seriously one of my all-time favorite whiskeys. Oh my God. That 17 is just fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of whiskey, let's get something poured here. Let's drink.
There you go.
Let's start with American, right?
You want to start with the American?
Yep.
I literally just realized I have no whiskey in my office, which is highly unusual.
Well,
Chris, do you want to go get some whiskey while I talk about Western America?
I want to get some whiskey. Give me a half a second.
Go get some whiskey. I'm having trouble opening this bottle. I can't unscrew it.
So if you're having trouble unscrewing it, then you need probably some hot water, which I should have probably had you. It might be just the sugar.
Oh, yeah. The sugar's probably definitely on it.
Yeah.
Actually, give me a second. I have a tool.
Oh, there we go. I did see somebody in the chat box saying that their bottle was a little tight. So if that's the case, you can hot tip, like a bartender tip, run a hot tap on that cap for about 5 seconds and it will loosen it right up, especially if you have like a sherry wood. American oak sometimes is the same way. Otherwise, rubber thing that you could open jars with usually pops it right open too.
This is my first time doing a sort of YouTube live thing, and I'm loving some of the comments. I'm just
they're fantastic. The side comments are
very, very funny.
And why not make beer with the wort that is, if it's that good? Great.
I mean, technically speaking, we do sort of make an unhopped beer, as you can imagine. Yeah. So legally speaking, we can't add any hops to the wort. That would immediately disqualify it from single malt whiskey production. I have desired us to bottle some of that stuff. I've actually brewed a bunch of our 5 malt sort of and used the same yeast strain, but obviously having to add hops to give it a bit of a different flavor. And it blows me away because I do think there's it'd be an interesting thing. Now, we do a program at the distillery with some local Washington State breweries called our Cask Exchange program, where we basically loan barrels to some of our buddies that own breweries in the area, and we take them back. We give them no specificity for the type of cask that it needs to, or the type of beer that needs to go into it. They can do really whatever they want with it. The only thing that we ask is that they just give them back to us, and then we'll bottle those. So we've got like 3 or 4 of those in the next 18 months coming up. And there are some huge, really exciting name breweries in Washington State that we're going to be doing it with.
And I'm going to answer 2 quick questions really quick, if you don't mind. Is Westland available online? It is available online. You can get it on Casker's, Reserve Bar, and a couple of other places. Those are all available online. And in your state, based on legalities, you can have it shipped directly to you.
With free shipping, with code SHIPWestland.
Yep. Ooh, hot tip. Say that again, Chris.
Right there, saving you money.
Ship Westland.
So if you have the promo code SHIPWestland, you can get that shipment for free for a bottle. And yes, we do have Westland here in Georgia. We have it in quite a few bars, but if you're looking for it in a retail space, if you're in the Atlanta metro area, Tower Wine has it. H&F Bottle Shop has it. One of the Total Wines has it, but that's the one that only sells the liquor license one. So, but if you have, if you can't find it, feel free to message me after this is over.
So here we're going to answer Joseph Brazo, who's actually out in Washington. He said, is your product closer to a Scotch, an Irish, or a Japanese?
So from a production methodology, we're identical to what Scotch or Japanese single malt would be. It's the same. I mean, you can only really make single malt so many ways, I guess. We're doing a classic double distillation. I guess there's a couple of little things we do that might be a touch different, but it's sort of a general rule. We're not doing triple distillation, which is classically sort of an Irish whiskey thing, and we also don't have purifiers on the still. So that would be the sort of the 2 big things I would say would keep us from being more Irish in style. And then obviously we're not using any unmalted barley in the mash. Also something that's relatively sort of Irish whiskey styled. For I think if you were to pick up. Not if you think, I know this. If you were to literally pick up Westland and sort of drop us in Glasgow, by the numbers, we make Scotch whiskey, or we make single malt Scotch whiskey from a legal perspective. Again, it's holistically not what we want to be doing. The last thing I like to hear from people is like, oh, you guys are like an American Scotch. We are as adamant as humanly possible that that's exactly what we don't want to be. The whole point of American Single Malt shouldn't be to recreating Scotland in America. I think the Japanese, to a certain degree, have done that, and it's frankly been to their detriment. Whereas if you look at American Single Malt distillers, whether it's us or Balcones down in Waco, Texas, or Stranahan's or Virginia Distilling, and there's some of their new stuff, it's really important for people to realize that those distilleries are trying to make something that makes sense relative to sort of not only the agricultural system they have near them, but also the influences they have culturally by them. And
I think that also goes into so most of my audience is really into bourbon. So I think another reason why I wanted to have you guys on is because out of Seattle, or I should just say out of Washington, one of my new favorite bourbons, and a lot of people watching, is out of Woodinville. And I noticed you guys, you use, water from the Cascade Mountains, which is kind of part of the story of Woodinville, what they do. But what drew me to your single malt is, and for you bourbon drinkers out there, it's not using, and we mentioned the 5 different barleys that they use. It just gives it's not like your typical Scotch, or if you're thinking like a Glenfiddich or a Macallan or something like that, the flavor profile is completely different. It's not going to really taste like that.
There's only one single malt, I'd argue, that's made in Scotland that I think we could say to a certain degree has a bit of a consistent profile, and that would be the Glenmorangie Signet bottling, because they're using quite a bit of pale chocolate malt or chocolate malt, I can't remember, in their mash. So they'll get some of that same dark chocolate flavor. But just to clarify, we talk about that roasted malted mash, that 5 malt barley that we use, but it's also about all the other sort of downstream ingredient choices that we make. So, I think we always assume kind of, right, oh, you just do one thing differently and that's what makes you different. But that one thing we do differently with our roasted malt mash choice requires us to think differently about the way we do fermentation and the style of yeast we use, the temperature of yeast we use, the types of oak casks we use, the actual maturation of those oak casks. It's never about a single thing. It doesn't take much to make single malt whiskey, right? You need 4 things. You need oak, you need water, you need yeast, and you need malted barley. And the 5th thing, obviously, an enormous amount of copper. But aside from like those 4 raw materials, it's the way that you sort of combine that puzzle together is what makes your whiskey special.
So what kind of stills are you guys using? Is it pot still? Is it column? What are you guys using?
So they're a bit of hybrids, right? So they're a classic sort of onion pot bottom, and then we have the ability to run plates for purification through the neck of the still. Now, we don't do that in sort of our standard run, but we do what's called a faints run every 3rd day. One of the unique things about Westland is that we basically do 2 cuts in our wash run, whereas most distilleries just do a single cut in their wash run. We do 2 cuts. So we keep what you would, I guess, technically speaking, refer to as like low wines. And then we add those to the heads and tails from the spirit run. And we run all of that together as its own run through the wash and spirit still. And that creates what I guess you could refer to as like kind of a heavy spirit. And that heavy spirit we use for vatting into a lot of the whiskeys that we make. It's not something you'd want to drink on your own. It's certainly not the thing that we would produce independently. But that flavor and that richness is really sort of robust. And it's always interesting. You can kind of, you taste the weight of our spirit. I saw a couple of people in the comments were asking, about there's no age statements and this, that, or the other thing. But it's, the reason that we don't have to do age statements, the reason we don't have to focus on those things is because we're not building single malt with an age statement in mind. You walk into a room, and listen, on the commercial side of the business, I do this all the time now. You have to be so careful not to determine what your whiskey's end goal is before you actually vat something, right? If you start with this idea like, okay, we want to make something that's $70 a bottle that's 9 years old. Well, you've already told yourself and your blender all of the raw materials of what he needs to make. The way we make whiskey at Westland is the way that I think, frankly, all distilleries should, which is you start with quality. You let your blender, you let your master distiller, they work through the lab, they recognize what they have that's quality, they create something, and then you determine what the sort of the commercial aspect will be of that whiskey. Too often, you see the opposite where the tail wags the dog, and it shouldn't work that way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think as whiskey drinkers, as the more and more the more we see these age statements going away, I think sometimes, and what's weird is like they went away so quickly, and now we're starting to see them come back, which I think is interesting, especially in the bourbon world. But with that in mind, let's get to the whiskey, guys. So we're gonna try the American Oak first, which again, for all of you out there, has that barley bill of the Washington State Pale Malt, Munich malt, extra special malt, pale, and brown malt. This is aged in new American oak, reserve American oak, and first fill ex-bourbon, correct?
You want to take this, Erica? You want to?
That's all correct. So it's new American oak, and then you're going to use an ex-bourbon cask on that as well. And then we're doing that Belgian Saison yeast that Chris talked about too. So what's great, I think, about American oak in general, and we kind of start here because it's our bread and butter where we started out with a distillery, is it's hitting that old world kind of single malt philosophy, if you will, but like by no means do we want to like ever entrench upon what the Japanese have been doing or what's Scotland's been doing for all of these generations, but it's that old world kind of feel with a new age approach, right? So we really want to kind of trudge in that kind of line of kind of American single malts, the new age, the new future, and this is kind of our house blend, if you will. So really beautiful notes going on in this one. It's got chocolate and I always get a little bit of lemon off of it, coffee, all of that kind of stuff. So it really does bring out so many different characteristics off of it.
So it's interesting you brought up those 2 notes because I'm Italian, and after dinner you have
aperitif.
They bring in the espresso, and they give you the lemon rind that you kind of wrap around the rim of the glass, and that's what that smells like on the nose to me. I'm
so glad you picked that up because obviously living in Seattle for as long as I did, and then obviously with us being kind of Washington, we really do try to, our company in general is very much about terroir. We've always been about terroir. We always will be. We want to pay tribute not only to what's around us, which is why we aren't making bourbon. Corn doesn't readily grow well around Washington. What grows great is malt. Yeah. And, you know, we work with the water that we have, we work with the land that we have, we work with the malt that we have. And more so I think Matt's always really wanted to do is go with flavor notes that really pay tribute and also speak a lot to, you know, Washington and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, he's not trying to say, we live down the street from Starbucks. It's not anything like that. But, you know, I think more so it's a great introduction into what we are as a distillery, and kind of gives it a good way of getting people involved in what we are doing, because there's obviously a lot.
And for those of you guys watching tonight, I'm going to be giving away 3 sample pack I'm going to be giving away 3 2-ounce samples of all 3 of these for anyone out there. That I'll ask a couple questions later. Or maybe I'll have Eric and Chris ask a nerdy question, see if you were paying attention, and whoever gets it right will win a 3-pack of samples. But yeah, let's just let's get into this one, because it smells so good. I'm taking a sip. Cheers, guys. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers, you guys. Yeah.
So one of the things that I really like about this whiskey, and I think this is indicative of all of them, but probably the most obvious to pull out of American oak, is that it's a rare whiskey where you can taste each of the raw materials that goes into it. The malted barley, obviously you were mentioning the coffee and chocolate, Erica. That's pretty quick. You pick that out really easily. Yeah. You also mentioned lemons. And I think that's something that I think it's easy to sort of say that and then realize that where is that coming from? That's not a malt flavor, and it's certainly not a barrel flavor. That's a fermentation flavor, which is really interesting. So because of the fact we don't use the M strain of yeast, which is pretty commonly used in sort of the overall distilling industry, because it's, you know, it's really strong fermentation profile. It has pretty much no temperature sensitivity whatsoever. We intentionally use POF positive style yeast, Belgian Saison yeast. So if you're familiar with POF, it's phenolic off flavor positive, which means that if you ferment our yeast, this Belgian Saison yeast, for those of you that might be into home brewing, it's actually a pretty easy strain to get your hands on. It's T58. If you ferment that at a really low fermentation temperature, you're going to create lots of phenol character. So let's assume, just for the sake of argument, we work at a brewery that makes Hefeweizen. If you ferment Hefeweizen with a Belgian Saison style yeast at a very low temperature, you're going to get loads of clove. You're going to get a lot more of those aggressive sort of earthy flavors. But if you ferment at a really high fermentation temperature, you're going to throw a ton of esters in your mash. So for us, we do that intentionally. So we start our fermentation temperature at about 75 degrees Fahrenheit, 70 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, and let it free rise. And that's super important, because during that free rise, as yeast is, so when yeast consumes starches and sugars, right, it consumes, starches are broken down, it consumes the sugars, it gives off carbon dioxide, and it gives off, obviously, ethanol alcohol. As it's doing that, it's an exothermic reaction. So loads of heat is coming off of this. And when it does, what's really cool about that is it creates all sorts of new flavors. Now, if we wanted that clove flavor to be much more strong, we would intentionally sort of crash that temperature down to something slightly below. So most Saison yeasts are typically around 68 degrees Fahrenheit when they can do a lot of their sort of their standard flavor profile, or their non-off-putting flavor. But if you ferment at that really high fermentation temperature like we do, we want esters. Because think about it, the flavors that we have in our mash, because of the fact that we use that roasted malt, we've got to think of a way to balance the bitterness that exists. So coffee and chocolate are the sort of the byproduct of roasted malt flavors with a high fermentation temperature, right?
Yeah, as you get deeper though in the glass, this is really
It's super fruity.
You're picking up a lot of delicate fruit flavors too, on top of the chocolate, on top of the coffee. Yeah. You do get some of those floral single malt characteristics, but as you mentioned, they're coming through in a little bit more of a sugary sweet sense, not so much a malty earthy sense. Does that make sense?
For sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
We actually, so it's interesting. You'll hear people talk a lot of time about, you know, whiskey, and it's kind of a lazy tasting note, so forgive me, but they'll be like, oh man, there's a real cereal note to this, and it's like, yeah, no shit. Yeah. But I think in our case, the cereal note is more coffee and chocolate, right? It's not that sort of like barnyardy wet grain note that's fairly common for single malt. So
Michael Klein is asking, I think he means esters, not
I'm hoping he means esters, but he might just also being very like seasonally correct.
Yeah, if he's asking about Easters, I would tell him to go get a chocolate bunny and see how those flavors do.
Hey, that pairing that you had was fire. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, it was. It was fire, yeah.
So esters is a byproduct of fermentation. So obviously, as yeast starts to consume those sugars, it's not just a single thing that's sort of produced from it. In the ATP chain, and this is getting way deeper than I had expected, but in the sort of the process of this happening, yeast can do two things, right? When there's in the presence of oxygen, yeast can reproduce. It can actually, you can make more yeast. That's why you'll see brewers will oxygenate their wort before they do fermentation. But in an anaerobic condition, right, where there's no oxygen present, they'll ferment. That's sort of the process. So, and there's always that bit of in between, right? Because it's never a perfectly oxygen-free environment, and it's never a perfectly anaerobic environment. And as they do, some of the sort of byproducts, and again, this is temperature dependent, could be phenol notes, phenolic notes, or ester notes or esters coming through. If there's actually, let me see if I've got it.
Wow, that's
a great book, and it's such a kind of, it's an easy read, relatively speaking. But yeast, this is like in every brewer sort of.
It is a really good book.
Guide to beer fermentation. It's like a $15 book. It is an easy way to learn and just get a little more comfortable about sort of the way yeast works. Now, I will say, talk to 99% of distilleries, especially in the single malt industry. They will tell you that there is no reason to do any of these things. They'll tell you you should use pale malt and you should use, the M strain of yeast because all you want is.
That's the one.
What?
Do you believe the yeast strain matters?
Yes, of course. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, interestingly enough, it's like the one thing at Westland we've not really experimented with. We've done, prior to Westland becoming a commercial thing, and Eric will probably remember this better than I do, but there was, these comments are killing me. There was some level of R&D in what that 5 malt ratio was going to be, but it was always quite clear that we were going to need a Belgian style, Saison style yeast to create the flavors to sort of balance that roasted malt aspect.
The malt, yeah.
All right, so for this one, I'm a huge fan of this. Has anyone ever said you get kind of like a, how do I put this? Like Japanese sesame seed type flavor profile going on?
Interesting.
Yeah. One of my viewers brought it up to me, Jason Coates, and now I can't get it out of my head. It's like sesame seeds.
It's always tough when someone presupposes something too. It's like you hear, it's like, you can tell people anything when they're kind of nosing a whiskey.
Mm-hmm. I'm getting it more on the palate than on the nose.
Like, right. Yeah.
Interesting.
I've never gotten that before, but I kind of get it now.
You kind of see that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So here I got a question from Halden Kirkwood. He says, in what, in your opinion, do American single malts offer in terms of flavor profile that is missing in bourbon and American rye? What makes them unique and significant? That's a bold question.
That feels like a terribly loaded question. I just want to point that out, Halden. I don't know if there's anything that's missing. So here's the one thing I will say, and obviously take this from a guy that is not a huge bourbon consumer. I'll have bourbon here and there, but as Erica knows probably better than anyone, I'll probably only really have it in a cocktail for the most part. I think the challenge is that when you start with the degree of specificity that the laws surrounding bourbon require, right? You've got to have 51%, corn. You've got to have obviously those charred new white American oak barrels. There's obviously issues about the fermentability of those things and the use of the use of barley to produce your enzymes that you're going to get in there. You are to a certain degree going to get to a point where like the flavor feels a bit predetermined in my mind. In single malt, it feels like, and this is, again, it's a personal thing, and I have a hugely vested interest in, people getting more into single malt. I'll be the first to, oh, nice catch. I just literally was like throwing whiskey all over my desk. I would say that, I think what's great about single malt, and this is, shameless plug moment here. When we started the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission in 2016, in case your viewers don't know, American Single Malt doesn't legally mean anything. According to the federal government and the TTB, the Alcohol Trade Tobacco Bureau, it's a function of the Department of Treasury. They are the people that determine the legality of everything that exists in beverage alcohol in this country.
So this question came up earlier, and it was something that I know Scott from Scotch Test Dummies is in the chat. Hey guys. We've talked about it. You guys know Erica, Matt from Whiskey Crusaders. It's something we've talked about when it comes to where do you think American single malt is going? One of my personal predictions for 2020 was that American single malt will have a true U.S. definition or distinction. Do you see that coming, or are we still a ways off?
I think pre-COVID, I would have said absolutely. I think, frankly, in light of the current circumstances, I could realistically see that it'll probably stretch sometime into 2021. I just think, listen, if the TTB were a separate thing, even if it were under sort of government control, but a separate body unto itself, the fact of the matter is it's part of the Department of Treasury right now with, frankly, just the way the economy is looking. I think there are things that they need to be much more focused on than probably legislation concerning, American Single Malt. I will say it does appear that they are moving forward with it. We've heard really
faster
positive
than
things.
they have in the last 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our the standard of identity that Erica was holding up, and listen, if you want to learn more about this kind of stuff, you guys should be checking out AmericanSingleMaltWhiskey.org. That's our commission website. You can sign up and get a ton of information sent directly to you as an email blast. We've got a great forum on there. You can talk directly to individual producers. I'm on pretty regularly. I think you're going to see big shifts. The fact that DISCUS, the Distilled Spirits Council of the United States, the WSWA, you've got a lot of governmental bodies that are involved on the producer, distributor, consumer side that want this to happen. That is a good thing for the federal government. They want to see that there is, to a certain degree, a consensus that this needs to happen. And anytime that you make your sort of overall platform about transparency and the ability for consumers to better understand exactly what they're buying, I've got to imagine that is a pretty compelling narrative for them to kind of build around as well.
Well, my other question before we get into the Sherrywood offering is, when it comes to, okay, so you have, I feel like, if this was me, I had my distillery, I had a voice at the table when it comes to this. I feel like you would want to create that distinction of what an American single malt is, but you don't want to mitigate the creativity that goes into it. You don't want to make it
100%.
you don't want to make it too astringent. And is that something that you don't want to make it too strict? Is that what's happening during these conversations?
Yeah, essentially right now, what exists and what you'll find on American Single Malt Whiskey.org and what how this kind of came about, long story short, everyone kind of agreed upon that exact thing. When the distilleries all came together, they all believed that there should be some way of being creative, but also we don't want to be making whiskey out of a bathtub, clearly. So it needs to be 100% malt. What are the benefits of having American Single Malt defined? So many.
Yeah, numerous.
Where do I start?
Not to make a joke
the same
out of
reason you do it for bourbon and scotch and everything else. Just
if you can give one top reason. What's your top reason why American Single Malt should be defined?
Oh, it's because right now it's not a level playing field at all.
Yeah.
So just to put in perspective, the three of us, Jason, Erica, and myself, we could start a distillery, do 50% corn, 50% malted barley, and call it just American Single Malt. Yeah. This is like a crazy thing, but Jason, hold up a bottle to the camera if you don't mind.
Yeah.
But one of the things you'll see, and this is a bit of clever wordplay, according to the federal government, the way that we've got it, listen, I see I'm like leaning in. I don't really need to do that. But you see how the words American Single Malt and whiskey are on separate lines? That's because according to the U.S. federal government, we make whiskey. We don't make American Single Malt because you can't make something that doesn't legally exist. So American Single Malt is considered a descriptor of style, whereas whiskey is the category by which we are judged. So the reason we want that to come through is because, again, not to make this a cost thing, but the cheapest malt that we use is about 35 cents a pound buying by the silo quantity. So that's our standard Washington State 2-row pale, right? As you get into the roasted malts, it's at least $1 a pound for those things.
Wow, that's great.
When you look at, number 2 yellow dent corn, the sort of the standard corn of the bourbon industry, you're looking at 5, 6, 7 cents a pound in the commodity market. So they're starting with a raw material that's 5 times to 6 times cheaper than what we do. The minute you get someone out there that goes, well, we could just do this and call it whatever we want. Now, thankfully, there isn't anyone doing that right now. And that's a great thing. I think, frankly, the backlash from the industry would be pretty significant. I know we would be pretty vocal about that.
Well, I mean, if the three of us got together and did decide to brew something in a bathtub, maybe it'll make things move faster.
I mean, honestly, sometimes it takes sort of a common enemy at something for the whole industry to go, that's why we're doing this, and that's what we don't want.
Yeah.
Actually moved
I
things.
mean, I
But
think it's
listen,
the
I
same.
will
I think
say,
it's the same as like bourbon and everything else. Obviously, they have so much of a passion for what they're doing, and we have so much of a passion for what we're doing. And we would never want to weed out people that have that same passion, but we also have to keep it. There needs to be a line, right? We don't want to, be the people like below or whatever that are just making it with whatever and small little barrels and aging it really, really quickly and then just shooting it out as quick as possible.
I mean,
We really put so much thought process into all of these. So I think that's really important.
And you could go back to history and look at the history of bourbon. I mean, you go back to 1897, Bottled and Bond, why that was formed, because at the time when bourbon was doing so well, people were making rot gut, whiskey and pouring battery acid and killing people.
Yeah.
They made that. Bottled and Bond was created to prevent that, because the people that were creating really good bourbon were being scammed and weren't being recognized for the quality whiskey they were making. So in essence, you're trying to get a definition, but in essence, it's kind of the same thing. Oh wait, we got Whiskey Crusaders, $10 super chat. Thank you so much. Says Jason, thanks for having my favorite brand ambassador, Erica, on again. She is the best. Eric, congrats on the wedding again as well. Westland is one of my favorites and best in the world. Nice.
Erica is awesome. We are happy to have her. That's for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
He's saying that because I'm right here.
I see plenty of nice things about you when you're not around. Stop that.
So one quick question before we get into the Sherrywood, because I did see it came across. This was one of my questions I had too. Mark JG asked it. He said, why not a barrel over 700 liters?
Yeah, so it basically keeps people from just kind of dumping things into giant tank. And then what you would end up getting with something like that is it would drop their production cost dramatically. We want to try to level the playing field as much as possible. I know it's probably not the most exciting or sexy thing to talk about the industry, but you want people to have relatively consistent costs that are built into sort of what they're doing on the back end. The minute you start getting into these massive sort of casks, you could basically just have people run it as a tank. And remember, we've removed any aspect of it doesn't need to be in barrel for any specific amount of time. It doesn't matter if it's new oak or used oak. I saw someone asking before. Yeah, we intentionally removed all that stuff because, quite frankly, I feel like that regulation is overreaching, and it gets away from the idea of allowing a producer to kind of do what they want. Just to be, this is one of those things, and it's such a kind of preachy moment, and forgive me because it feels soapbox, but one of the big things about this is that there is no better judge and jury in the whiskey industry than an American consumer with a wallet. Like, you are the absolute perfect person to determine if something is worth it or not worth it. And at the end of the day, we set up laws to make sure that you have transparency and awareness as to what's in the bottle, but the quality of it is the thing that you're going to decide. Is this thing good? Is this thing I want? That's up to you. And I think I don't ever want to get in the way of a producer. Listen, there are plenty of things out there in the marketplace that I go, oh man, I couldn't even imagine trying to talk to people about being passionate about that. I'm really fortunate that at Westland, we do stuff that I believe in. And it feels pretty natural to go, yeah, this is exactly what people should be doing. Yeah. But for the broader industry, what really should happen is you should say, listen, these laws exist to allow people to go, this is exactly what it is, right? When you buy a bottle, this is what it is. But the marketplace should determine how successful that thing should be.
No, absolutely. So, thanks for asking that. That's, very awesome information. I really appreciate it. So, hey, let's get into the Sherrywood now, because it's completely different than the American.
Jason, is it your favorite so far?
I don't know. I haven't tried the peated yet. So.
Oh, interesting.
Hey, Joseph Brazo just came through with his $5 super chat. He says, Woodinville just finished a whiskey in Ardbeg casks. Why not Westland cask?
Yeah, the reason that Woodinville finished something in an Ardbeg cask is because they're owned by the same parent company. I can imagine that Moet Hennessy and Remy Martin probably aren't going to be sharing a lot of cask back and forth.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, it's a fair question. I love the stuff over at Woodinville. Really like the stuff at Ardbeg. Really like the stuff at Woodinville. But there's a better chance of us utilizing casks from people that are within the same sort of parent company family. So for us, obviously, that's pretty exciting because you've got Bruichladdich, you've got Mount Gay, Metaxa, you've got Remy Martin Cognac. There's some pretty amazing stuff in there.
Yeah.
So the Sherrywood now. So now this is finished, and you're still using those new American oak, the Cooper Select, the Cooper Reserve, but now you're also finishing in ex Oloroso and ex Pedro Jimenez hogsheads and butts, which is gives it a really rich sherry influence.
Yeah. So, and kind of just diving really quick for people out there that are sherry fans or whiskey, finished in sherry. I urge you to try this in the future if you haven't yet. Something really cool that we do at Westland is kind of do a little bit of a different process when we get our sherry barrels. So sherry is such a beautiful thing on its own, but obviously with us getting it from Spain, we're having to ship all the way from Spain to Washington. So you can imagine that amount of travel from boat to train to, you name it, freight and everything in between. So what most distilleries do, by many reasons, is absolutely no fault to their own. It's more for just getting more barrels to them. Is they break these sherry barrels down, and they get more sherry barrels on a pallet. They get it freighted over quicker and faster and more efficiently and more cost efficiently too. Essentially, what we do is we do not break these sherry barrels down. We keep them whole and still intact. Most of them, if not all of them, still have a tiny little bit of sherry still inside as well. I'm not talking like a large, substantial amount, obviously, but enough to kind of keep the sponge wet on the inside. And so once we get that over in Washington, as you can imagine, not only have we not had to burn the inside of those staves that have been broken down and then had all that time just being out in the open or, boxed on top of one another, but now we're getting these whole, upright, still intact barrels, and we immediately dump that whiskey inside of there. So that essence of sherry we really want to deliver on. And so it's not just we're, splashing some whiskey with some sherry in there. It's really just this beautiful marriage of both of them. So, yeah.
Well said. So Michael Klein, who I know is a very big traditional bourbon head, bourbon and rye whiskey, he says, so you two are amazing. I didn't think Jason could outdo himself with the sheets coming out of your mouth is so amazing. Thank you for being a quick part of the community.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
I just want to point out there was an interesting comment here from a guy, Jason Coates, that one of the advantages of shipping broken down sherry casks, of not shipping those breakdowns, is that we don't have to do any sulfur treatment on those, right? So it's pretty fascinating. Those things literally come to us from Spain. They get off a container, and within a week or two, they're getting filled. The other thing to keep in mind, and we don't really talk about this much in the industry, but those barrels, when they're broken down into hoop and stave and then rebuilt potentially, so in Scotland, almost always at Craigellachie, and in the US, you'd see it like Rocky Mountain, Cooper John, and Denver. People forget, like, those, they don't exactly fit perfectly back together, and you're assuming that no staves break during shipment. So, that puzzle never fits back exactly the way it was. And then you've obviously got to engorge the cask to make sure that it's going to stay watertight, because if it doesn't, then you're going to have a leaker, and you don't want that, obviously. So yeah, it's one of those things that, yes, you spend way more money upfront doing it this way, but it's also to ensure that you're paying a huge premium. I mean, we're spending well over $1,000 US per sherry cask that we buy right now. To put that in perspective, per cask.
Want to make sure we.
What's actually, are Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez the same when it comes to price, or are they vastly different price wise?
It can be different. It depends on your producer. So you'll try to iron some of that out from a contractual standpoint. Okay. So not to push people into another medium, but I will say our sherry cooper that we work with, this guy Rafa Caballo, his whole family runs a company called Tonelería del Sur, which is down in Montilla, Spain. He actually was on Whiskey Cast either this week or last week and talks a little bit about where the sherry industry is going. It is a fascinating listen, and he is an absolutely wonderful guy. We really enjoy working with him. And honestly, it's with a distillery the size that we are, which we're obviously not the size of some of these huge Scottish single malt distilleries or Japanese distilleries. The challenge is getting access to good quality sherry casks, and especially knowing that we have such a specific manner of purchase, as Erica was pointing out. It's having those relationships is critical.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I can imagine. I mean, listen, you have the fermentation, you have your distillation, you have the yeast strains, you have the esters and everything else that contributes to that flavor. But if your wood sucks, you might as well just throw it out.
So it's interesting. You can make an average quality mash and have great wood, and you can make okay whiskey. You can have the absolute perfect mash and bad wood, and you will never make good whiskey.
Exactly.
Ever.
Yep. So the sherry wood here. So in contrast to the American oak, which was, like we said, we had that lemon and that chocolate, almost kind of an espresso type nose to it. This one is cookie dough and honey.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a little. Yeah, the sort of the yeast note on here is more like candied orange peel, but I would agree. It reminds me a bit of like an uncooked oatmeal raisin cookie.
Yeah, there's total like a fresh cookie dough, sugary sweetness, but a ton of honey.
Yeah.
Yeah,
a
a
little
little
sort of like maple syrup, pancakes and butter thing on the nose.
Yeah, it's definitely got a pancakey butter thing going on.
Yep. Yeah, it's a great little whiskey. It's interesting. I think you and I were talking about it a little earlier, but obviously, sherried single malt is, and certainly peated single malt isn't something we can lay any sort of claim to say like we own the style clearly. For us, it's about how do we show our house profile through in a more classic sort of bottling style. So in sherry, right, it's understanding that in this whiskey, only a small percent, I shouldn't say a small percentage, but about a third of that whiskey is matured in sherry. The remainder of it is either just finished in sherry. So let's say it's equal parts thirds, right? A third of it completely not in sherry cask, literally no sherry maturation. A third of it just getting finished for sherry, either, between 6 and 12 months. And then a third of it doing its full maturation in sherry. If this whiskey were matured exclusively in sherry cask for the entirety of the amount of time, it would be very uninteresting, flabby, kind of fat on the palate. You need to have some tannin to kind of help balance this out. And the minute that you remove any new American oak on this, that's what you'd end up getting. I think, listen, as interesting as this whiskey is, and the fact that the sherry is just stunning, what makes this whiskey so compelling is the use of our air-dried new white American oak and how it balances the flavor.
Yeah, see, now you're speaking. Yeah, see, Chris, this is why I like you, because you're coming.
We had to get all the way to an hour in, but now he figured it out.
Yeah, I figured it out. Because when I was trying, and I've discussed this with Erica way back. I don't know if you remember this, Erica. We were talking a little bit about what drew me to certain scotches. It was easily the scotches that had a mix of cask maturations, especially ones that use both sherry and American oak. I think it balances it out. It gives you the sweet. It gives you the spice.
Yep.
It gives you just a way more of an interesting mouthfeel. Yeah. There are some ultra aged sherry scotches that I've had that are incredible. But when it comes to an everyday scotch, like something like this or something like, I always talk about Bunnahabhain, how much I love that. Some of the different cask maturations used in Bruichladdich, I love those. So if you have that different types of cask maturation, that's my wheelhouse. So this sherry wood, I think, is doing that for me. It's giving me the honey. I'm still getting the chocolate note on the palate. It's still there. Like I remember from the American, but I'm getting way more honey and sweet, sweet candy notes on top of it.
Yeah, so American oak's all dark chocolate. It's like chocolate covered espresso beans. The sherry wood's more milk chocolate almond. The nuttiness, and you're still getting some of that sort of that chocolatey note, but it's obviously been completely shifted by how sweet the casking regimen is. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. What is your guys' favorite attribute from the sherry wood?
Eric, I'll let you can answer that one. I'm not allowed to pick between the kids.
Mine has to be this maple syrup pancake note. I mean, it's like breakfast.
It is. Somebody, I think I've mentioned this maybe when I was over at Matt's and we did a Whiskey Crusaders thing, but it might have been somewhere else. All of my tastings have blent together. Someone one time told me that this reminded them of their grandmother's oatmeal raisin cookies, and I was like, I got to meet your grandma because I've never tasted oatmeal raisin cookies that tasted like this. But I could see the raisin. I could see the raisin in there too. Yeah, totally. It's a beautiful whiskey. I think what's really great, across the line, what's really great is these whiskeys really do well in classic cocktails too. So I love them neat, but I also love them in a classic cocktail. So I think that also, makes me kind of love them even more.
That's awesome. All right, guys. So we tried the American oak, which was beautifully espresso, lemon, some sweetness there. We've had the sherry coming in with basically maple syrup and oatmeal raisin cookies in the glass and pancakes. Now, actually with pancakes, I did a live stream a while back. We were trying to figure out what whiskey went better with pancakes and waffles.
Yep.
We did a whiskey and waffle
there you go.
live stream. Yeah, we did whiskey and waffles, and I have to try this with some waffles. I might do that
It's dope.
tomorrow.
I've done a brunch class with some smoked meats and Octomore, and then I've done some
Oh my
pancakes and
God.
waffles with Westland. So
That sounds
I can
pretty legit.
attest.
I gotta tell you what I did with Octomore last summer. I coal cooked some oysters over a fire, and then as they were cooking, as they started bubbling, I poured Octomore into the shell, and then when I took it out and I downed it, and it was ridiculous.
Yep.
Just an idea, just telling you.
Yep. Yeah, see, I did say it at Whiskey Crusaders. My memory isn't all gone through me staying inside right now.
I had that
I feel like
experience.
it was the one place I've said that story because I think I had heard it that day. So
yeah.
there you go.
All right, guys. So now we're going to move to the Westland peated whiskey, which is, I took to peat very early on in my Scotch journey because I just thought they were really interesting. I wasn't crazy about the smoke up front when I first tried it, but I think as I was one of the ones that you kind of have to work. I worked my way up to the peat, whereas some people try it right away and just love it. But now, like stuff like Octomore, the Ardbegs, the Lafroigs, like I love that stuff. So
you have not tried this one yet, though.
No, I've only had these two. I have not tried the peated single malt, so I'm really excited.
So I will, like you've been doing with the other ones, go ahead and smell it before you try it because I think you'll be very surprised by kind of the overall.
Okay, so tell us about your process to make your peated American single malt. What's the process like? How does it differ from what they do in Scotland?
Yeah. So ironically enough, Chris, if you don't mind, I'll take this one.
No, go for it. Yeah.
So well before even when we got kind of taken by Remy Cointreau as well, Westland was also utilizing peated malt from the same place, malting facility that Bruichladdich also uses.
Okay.
So it's the same facility. They continue to use that same facility. So ironically enough, we are using peated malt from Scotland. A lot of that reason is that they just do it the best. Obviously that their facilities over there are more equipped to do peated malt as opposed to US soil. They've been doing it for a lot longer. And so when Matt went over there, well before even the distillery opened, before we kind of came out with this release, we landed on that particular peated malt style. So much like Bruichladdich, we do a slow and low approach. It is 55 ppm, but it's a very beautiful ppm because of these, again, roasted malts, the Belgian Saison yeast in there, and it is not a overwhelming peat on the palate at all.
All right, so just to let everyone know that's watching, so the barley bill for this one, you have the heavily peated 55 ppm malt, as Erica mentioned. Also using that Washington State Select Pale Ale, Munich malt, extra special malt, and they're still using the chocolate and brown malt in here. So that's why I'm very intrigued to try this.
So,
and then your task types. You have first fill ex-bourbon, and then you have your two American oaks.
It's probably worth just clarifying. So when we talk about using peated malt in this, it's not being added to our 5-malt recipe. So for some level of clarity, I think it's important to say that we produce 3 different distillates at Westland. The one that we're probably the most well known for is our 5-malt recipe, right? So it's that Washington State Pale Malt, the Munich Malt, Pale Chocolate, Brown Malt, and Briess Extra Special. Again, mashed, fermented, distilled as one thing. Then we do a straight Washington State Pale Malt run. That's a good sort of blending stock style distillate. It's, our typical vatings right now are anywhere from sort of 25 to 30 barrels at a time. Sometimes you just need a little bit of like a high tone fruitier flavor coming through. Those pale malt casks are great for that. Ooh. And the third distillate type we produce is a straight peated malt. And again, as Erica was pointing out, that's that Baird's heavily peated at 55. It's really important that people realize that style of production is not something you'll classically see in Scotland. In Scotland, what's more sort of historically relevant is people make a single distillate mash, right? They make their mash condition, they distill it, and then they use the amount of time and the style of cask to change the sort of the flavor that the overall spirit takes on. What we do is much more in line with what the Japanese do, whereas the Japanese will do many, many different types of sort of mash conditions, along with different types potentially of distillation conditions, and then certainly casks. And that creates a huge palette of blending stock from them to pull from. Now, obviously for us, we're always using the same yeast in that Belgian Saison yeast, but having those 3 different mash conditions, the 5 malt, the pale malt on its own, and then the peated malt on its own, really does give us a little bit more to work with and to make some really sort of interesting whiskeys overall.
That's actually, that actually answers a lot of my questions I was going to have about
He breaks it down a lot better.
Yeah, breaks it down very well. Hey, any chance, Erica, you can answer Emily's question?
Sure. Yeah. I would say obviously the tried and true old fashioned for the sherry wood. Honestly, is really good as an old fashioned, and so is the American oak. I'd go with a Manhattan with the American oak as well, and then something that me and Chris were honestly going back and forth on yesterday is the Westland peated goes really good in a mojito, and it also does very good as a mint julep if you're really just feeling super, anxious to really just crack out the ice and want to get whacking on that. Then that's also a really, really good one. The mint and the simple do really well with the peat because it's not an overwhelming peat, kind of like medicinal smoke. So it's more of like a campfire-y kind of smoke, much like the Bruichladdich smoke is, for those of you that have had it with me or have tasted it before. So it complements it really well. So but there's a ton, and I'm sure whatever you have will be delicious.
Is it a mojito?
That's great.
That's
actually I'm going to coin that. I love that.
That comment that Ron made.
Love that.
So 2 Up, Ron's wood turning shop. Yeah. So Ron, I saw you were asking a couple of questions about this earlier. Let me just clarify. So in the case of this, we're not trying to be Scotch. So obviously we're pulling our peat. The peat that's used for the peated malt that Baird's makes is coming from non-coastal Highland areas. So that's also relatively untraditional. You don't see that terribly often. People tend to think of peated whiskey, and they obviously think of the Western Hebrides and the Outer Islands. And that's okay. I will say that for us, the concept that we had in mind with Westland Peated was to produce a sessionable style whiskey. And you'll have to forgive me, but those beer terms are something you'll hear us come back to. It's the idea of like a sessionable ale, or a sessionable whiskey. It's the kind of thing you can have 2 or 3 glasses of and kind of sit and enjoy. I always get a kick out of this because people are like, I love Lafroig and I like Lagavulin and Ardbeg or, Octomore and all these things. And those whiskeys are fantastic. And believe me, I love them as well. I've got a cabinet full of them. The thing I will say is that there is a time and place for all of those, and there's a time and place for nuance. I was laughing. I was at a bar in France about a year ago with Matt Hoffman, our master distiller, and this guy comes in like full of gusto and immediately like knocks back a Lafroig in like 2 seconds, and I was like, all right, this guy sounds like fun. And then immediately switches to a glass of Chardonnay, and I was like, okay, how much of this is we're in France, so wine, or is the answer? I think the question is like, or not the question, but the idea is like, your palate just can get so fatigued by those things.
Yeah,
really
there's
quick.
No way of tasting anything after it.
Listen, I always laugh. People, I think they always say like, oh, whiskey and food go so well together. It's actually super difficult to pair whiskey and food. I think it's one of those things that people say all the time that it works terribly well together. I'm a bit on the fence. But I just
say a classic charcuterie plate, just bread, butter, meat.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm good with that. And definitely, and any smoked seafood, I think, goes really well with a good peated whiskey.
Truly, yeah.
But I do think it's one of those things that like you need a whiskey that shows as much restraint as the food is potentially going to. If it's all about one massive single flavor, something's going to overpower the other thing. I did a whiskey dinner years ago. Literally, the best thing at the entire whiskey dinner was a granita made out of heavily diluted 8-year-old Highland Park from an independent bottler. It blew me away because, again, it was like the one thing that was like super restrained, and it was meant to be just sort of a palate cleanser. And I think if we start to think about whiskey in that context, we realize that like you need sessionable whiskeys. You want something that, the second glass of doesn't feel like a chore when you get to the end of it.
Yeah. David Giles is asking, are any thought about using wood instead of peat to smoke malt?
As much as I would like absolutely love for that to happen, because I am a huge fan of smoked malt, not just peated malt. Yeah, I think it's pretty unlikely at this point. I'm not saying that we haven't experimented with certain things and there might be some stuff laid down, but it'll be a ways off before that stuff gets bottled.
Yeah, I agree with Scott from Scotch Just Dummies. I really don't drink whiskey with a lot of food. I do have it with dessert sometimes. I think it's a good dessert pairing.
I like cooking with it. I like cooking with whiskey, like deglazed.
Cooking with whiskey.
Chocolate, whatever, drizzle.
Yeah, but having like a bourbon with like like grilled chicken and vegetables doesn't really like go too well.
Yeah.
But
you like have to be in the mood for it.
Yeah,
like you have to be in the mood for the whiskey, and then you need to just be with it.
Yeah, I think for me a peated Scotch is probably one of the easier things to pair because of that smoke. So having it with barbecue or anything smoke or meats or cured meats and bread, it's kind of
like a Bloody Mary.
Kind of a natural pairing, which is kind of cool. But all right, let's get into this peated because I'm getting some amazing notes on the nose that are very reminiscent of Bruichladdich, but it is giving me some of the Westland DNA, if I could say that.
Do you feel like it's very peaty on the nose though?
Not at all. Not at all.
Just a question.
Yeah, it took a little. That's why I don't know if you noticed, I poured more because I thought there was something wrong with my nose. I'm like, how come I'm not getting a lot of?
No, nothing. You're good. That's why I was like, I'm gonna make sure
I'm getting way more of the. If I take it back to like the classic Lottie, like those notes on the nose, the lemon, the orange.
Yeah,
I'm getting a little bit of nuttiness there too.
Yeah,
and I'm also getting some like ripe banana too.
I always get a lot of like earth notes on it. Like if I'm talking about like stone or moss or anything like that, I just get a lot of that too. Like wet earth. I'm weird.
Yeah.
I've got a $4.99 super chat. He says, I like my American oak. That's all I have seen in New Orleans. Well, hey.
Just keep looking, brother. It's out there.
Hit up Martin's over the bridge or Martin's over the bridge on the other side of the lake in Metairie. And then what's that great shop in downtown New Orleans? Keith and Company. That place is fantastic.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's not super.
I think in Westland.com, don't we have where our liquor shops are?
Yeah, you can actually go right on the website and you can type in your zip code and it'll tell you all the local shops around you that carry it. And I think you can actually see what they carry as well, if memory serves correct.
All right, I'm going for a sip of this, guys. Cheers.
Love it. Cheers.
I saw someone in the comments that they had a bottle of Cask 1208. That's a nice pickup, man.
Oh,
that's a good single cask.
Yeah, that. You know what? It right off the bat, I probably would not guess that that's that much peated. It's very soft, but very delicate. But also, I think it's balancing out some of the nutty and the fruit notes that I'm getting too.
Yep.
That's a beautiful whiskey. I could drink that. Yeah. I like that.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, I could definitely sip on that because like you said, you don't really get you don't really get it too much on the nose. I'm trying to, maybe it is kind of like the classic lot. I mean, I know the classic Lottie is unpeated. While this is
unpeated. Mm-hmm.
But you are getting, like you said, those earthy type notes. There is a campfire aspect on the very back end that you do get.
It's more wood smoke than it is peat smoke.
Yeah, it's more. So if you guys like a High West campfire type smoke to it, but it's kind of like that, but way more delicate.
Yeah, it's definitely less medicinal, more smoke fire.
It always reminds me. This is such a weird taste note, but it reminds me of like pencil shavings on fire. There's that sort of cedar note. Yeah.
Oh, look at this recipe. Sam Clark: steak on a bed of porcini and chestnut mushrooms with an OA whiskey sauce. Surely a pairing made in heaven. If only I could afford to make that.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
That's a hot Ardbeg recipe. Send that over to the distiller. I'm sure they'd love to
that is a hard.
So Rebecca Page had a good question. So so these are all non-chill filtered, no coloring added. They're 90. All of them are 92 proof, correct?
Yeah, everything in our core range is at 46% ABV, 92 proof. Yep. So no filtration, no caramel color. The MSRPs on the American Oak is going to be $69.99, and then Sherrywood and Peat it'll be $79.99.
Okay.
Depending on region, but that's pretty much where you're going to find it within a few dollars.
But yeah, they'll be in
the I've seen them all a little cheaper at a couple Total Wines. I've seen them.
Yep. Yeah. We can kind of suggest, but we can't demand. Let's put it that way.
So when you guys think of other American single malts in the market that, you know, impress you, what are the other ones out there that really you're saying like, wow, they're doing it right as well?
Oh man, I mean, right away there's three that come to mind. So there's Balcones down in Waco.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Andalusia distilleries in Texas as well. I think they're making some really cool stuff.
Andalusia, Striker, they're making some amazing.
Yeah, Striker's killer. And then honestly, man, I absolutely love the stuff getting made by Colin Keegan over in New Mexico. I think Cole Keegan, the stuff they're doing with their mesquite smoke. Someone was asking about the idea of smoking with wood instead of peat. I think that whiskey is just fantastic.
I got actually, I don't know if she's in the chat, Christine Deems. She's out west too, and she sent me a sample of something from McCarthy's, which I thought was delicious.
Yeah. So they're sort of an OG in the American single malt thing. They're great.
Yeah. They're one.
I mean, the great part about it is that, you know, like I've kind of mentioned before, is we're all kind of in this together, which we're in this like small like group of like, we're trying to get this like passed. We're trying to get this be a thing. And we all kind of have our own brand. We all have our own like kind of way of thinking and what we want to kind of look and feel like as a distillery, which I think is super cool too. So, and you can kind of get that from, you know, tasting it and seeing it out and all that kind of stuff, which I think is fun to see. But yeah.
McCarthy's, Westland, Stranahan's, Balcones, absolutely.
Yeah. There's you know, one of the things that I love is there's real house profile for a lot of the American single malt distillers. Everyone's got their own little thing that they believe it.
Yep.
Hey, how you doing, David? All right, so why don't we talk a little bit? Wow, it's already about time flies when you're talking nerdy. This is awesome.
When you're talking to Chris.
Yeah, when you're talking, So I did want to touch on your two special releases with the Peat Week and also the Gariana. Yep. So can you tell me a little bit about those, how they came to be, and also is there anything outside of Peat Week, Gariana, or anything outside the core range that you guys are possibly working on, different cask finishes? A lot of people are experimenting with rum, with Mizunara casks, anything like that you can maybe talk about that might be coming up.
Yeah, so obviously we have a pretty healthy special release program at the distillery. I would say, you know, aside from offering a hand fill option at the distillery once we reopen, we do an annual April Fool's release, which for transparency's sake, we skipped this year. Just didn't feel like the right time to release an April Fool's style release. I think the things that people probably would imagine we're the most well known for would be our Peat Week bottling, as you mentioned, our Gariana releases, and then I would say our cask exchange releases have become super popular. So I mentioned the cask exchange a little while back. That's obviously our partnership program with local breweries in the sort of the Pacific Northwest, where we loan them cask, then we take them back, we mature whiskey in it, and then release it as sort of a collaboration style release program, along with the beer that was matured in the barrels as well. Peat Week has changed a little bit over the years. So what started as a single barrel only thing has actually now shifted back to becoming a single barrel only thing at the distillery. But there was a short window for a couple of years, 2016, 17, and 18, where it kind of got out to a couple of different markets. But basically, Peat Week is always going to be 100% heavily peated distillate casks. So when you taste our standard Westland Core Range peated, only a fraction of the barrels are that peated distillate run, whereas in Peat Week, it's 100% of those heavily peated run casks. So it is significantly stronger phenolic register. The whiskey is much more aggressive. It's always bottled at a slightly higher ABV also. We do anywhere from 50 to sort of whatever cask strength would be on that particular bottling. This year, we decided, as we've got some kind of interesting things coming up in Peat, which I'll not to sort of bury this, but I can't really get too deep into it, but we've got some super exciting Peat style projects coming up that'll be ready for release in the next couple of years. We thought that it made sense to bring Peat Week back to being a distillery only option for the next couple of years. The 2020 release that happened in January, it was a first fill sherry punch-in. First fill sherry punch, excuse me. A first fill French oak punch-in.
French
oak.
It
was a really interesting flavor because we don't work with French oak terribly often, as you can probably imagine. But one of the sort of neat things about working with Remy Cointreau as a partnership is that they're actually part owners in the Sig and Moreau cooperage as well. And they've got one of those in Napa, one of those out in France. And the ability to get some really high quality French oak is pretty fantastic. The thing that I'd argue we've probably become the most famous for has to be our Garyana bottling series. So Garyana is a native species of oak indigenous to the Pacific Northwest. You know, going back to the 1850s or so, it grew as pretty much as far south as Central Coast California and well up into, you know, the sort of southern parts of British Columbia. It's unfortunate now that it's basically down to about 5% of what its original habitat was. Not to make a joke out of it, but one of the unfortunate characteristics of Gary oak is that it likes to grow where people want to build expensive houses, which is a pretty bad character trait to have when you're trying to survive as a species. We identified a couple of years ago that Gary oak could be something really exciting for us to work for. It is a very challenging species of oak to work for. It's quite unlike Quercus alba, white American oak. You know, Quercus alba has that really beautiful vanilla, coconut, creme brulee, custardy, sweet thing going on. Gary oak has all of the same sort of rich flavors, but much darker, much meatier. So you'll get things like barbecue sauce, ginger, you know, Jamaican rum, brown sugar. Those are more classic Garyana style notes. And aside from the fact that, you know, there's obviously not much of it, and legally speaking, we're not allowed to cut down Gary oak. We actually have to wait for the trees to fall naturally. We also have to air dry them for an incredibly long time. You know, Garyana is not, or Gary oak, I should say, is not just sort of ready to make a barrel out of right away. Almost all of the Gary oak that we work with is a minimum 3 years of an air dry time, and more often than not, closer to 5 years. So there's a real sort of labor intensive process to get that board footage available to becoming what could be barrels for us.
Well, you know, the solution, guys, just start growing a Garyana, you know, garden in your backyards.
We do, though. So this is sort of interesting. So every year, the entire distillery team, and this is part of our sort of, you know, sustainability approach and being really mindful of being good stewards of the Northwest, is every year the entirety of the team at Westland is going out and planting anywhere from 300 to 400 Gary oak trees, and then going back out at other times throughout the year and basically cleaning up the habitat of where we plant those things. One of the challenges for Gary oak is it grows really slowly. And what happens is you'll get a lot of native grasses in the area will literally just grow right on top of a small sapling and basically blot out the sun. And when it does it, it'll kill the growth of that oak from day one. So this is where, you know, you think about Native American tribes in the Pacific Northwest, the idea of controlled burns. The reason you would do those in those areas is that it would basically open up vegetation. You'd get animals coming in to eat those acorns because oaks are very fire resistant, whereas all those grasses that grow natively sort of underneath it are not. So you'd basically clear out those areas and those acorns would have an opportunity to sort of grow or potentially get eaten by animals. Now that doesn't really happen anymore because obviously with wildfire season, it's something people are really mindful of. But these areas, you know, in these Gary oak savannas, some of these public resource areas that we're working with, it's really exciting to see some of this. I mean, I you know, for being from the first group that went out there and planted some of those trees, to go back into these areas and to see some of these Gary oak saplings now a few years in. I mean, we're talking
pretty cool.
Trees a couple feet. It's really exciting.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And if you guys on the chat, I have seen a couple people, where can I get Garyana? Again, you know, if you're able to find it at your liquor store, that's great. But also I know that Caskers has it, the 2017 release still available. I imagine that's pretty limited and there's not a whole lot left. So I would probably venture, if they were able to get it in state, I would really try and pick that one up. It was a beautiful release for us.
I did want to ask real quick, I know these are NAS, is there a ballpark of age you can give us on the core range at all?
Yeah, so all the core range bottlings are a minimum 4 years at this point now. They'll probably get to about the 5-year mark. We don't have any intention of putting age statements on the packaging, though. I to be quite honest, I think it just causes people to be lazy. The minute you put age statements on, people get this preconceived notion of there's some indication of quality, and it couldn't be anything further from that.
Yeah. No, it's for sure. For something at about 4 years and maybe 5 years, I mean, it's got fantastic flavor. So the quality. Listen, if you don't have an age statement, if you do, as long as you have quality whiskey, I don't really think it really matters.
Listen, the last thing you should be doing is focusing on how, you know, if the only thing you have to talk about is how old your whiskey is, you need to think about better stuff.
Yeah. Well, just got my Trump bucks, so cheers to Westland and yourself, JC. Don't have any Westland, so Balcones will have to do. All right.
Oh God.
Well, it's okay. We're a sister distillery. So
AJ is in he's in Texas, so
killer.
There you go.
So let's see. Any final?
Sorry, I'm laughing about
in the chat.
The Trump bucks is going down for sure. I'm gonna put that up there. That's good. It's good.
All right. Well, I think let me see if anyone had any questions before we sign off here. Let's see. Others with Gariana. Okay, Joseph Zeidner did some.
Yeah,
they're
out there. I will say so that, that, you know, obviously call your better retail stores. I know there's plenty of folks that have them. Their bottles get out to some of the, you know, non-allocated retailers pretty regularly. If you beat the bushes, you'll find some stuff here and there. And suggested retail on that stuff should be about $150.
All right. That's I would imagine for the types of trees that they are and what goes into creating those, I could see why there's the price hike there.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're limited. So
Gariana is one of those things that the effort and the cost of the materials that goes into that whiskey justifies a significantly higher price point than even, frankly, what it is.
Oh, and I don't know if you even mentioned this. You might have, Chris. It's cast strength too. So.
It is cast. Well, it depends on the individual one, but yeah.
Oh, that's true. That very good point. Fair point.
So hey, Sam, I just saw Sam Clark made a mention. We are available in the UK for what it's worth. You can shoot me an email at chris@westlanddistillery.com and I'll help you find some.
Also, bravo to staying awake and watching this.
Yeah. Why are you still awake at 3:30 a.m., man? I know it was a bank holiday on Monday, but it's definitely not one today.
Yeah, we got the whiskey community knows no time zones.
Yeah, I love it. I saw Alberta, Canada. I saw UK. I'm like, we're good.
Yeah, for those of you in Texas, Mirage Fine Spirits in Colleyville.
Mirage is great.
Colleyville, Texas has it. There you go. Great. All right, guys. So you know where to find it. David, the producer, do they have Westland at Vinny's in Chicago? Yes, they do. Yeah, you bet. Somebody had said it earlier in the chat that they get it. Westland is on sale there sometimes, so that's where they get it.
Oh, nice. Yeah, the two big Binny stores that always seem to have the sort of biggest selection are going to be South Loop and Marcy Street.
Yep. Austin Shaker also is a big fan, and we love them there. Give them a hug for me.
That store is fantastic, Austin Shaker. I really like that place.
Thanks, man. That's awesome, man. Yeah, they have Westland. Yeah, so it's out there, guys. Just definitely based on what you heard tonight for the flavor profiles, what you're looking for. You know, you could definitely pick one of these, and I don't think you'll be disappointed in either of them unless you just want to buy the whole damn range because they all are very good. But are
we doing a question or are you doing a raffle or whatever?
So that's next. I'm gonna see who's we're gonna win. We're gonna give away. I'm gonna give away 3 2-ounce samples of one of each of these for someone out there to try.
And I'll tell you what, man. I'll tack on. I actually just got a point of sale shipment in, so I'll add on. I just got some really nice Westland trucker hats, so I'll add on a hat to each of those. So knock yourself out.
Oh, a trucker hat.
I don't know. What are they, like a snapback mesh?
Snapback.
I got you.
It's Matt.
They honestly are the most requested item I have of any of the stuff that I have, period.
Yeah.
Literally. They are like, all of my friends wear them. My friends' dads want them. My friends that are like by the pool want them. They're like, where are those hats that you got? Yeah, they're dope.
Okay, so based on what we talked about now, somebody in the chat said no chemistry questions.
Oh man.
We're looking at you, Chris.
All right. I'll take a pass then.
All right. So I'll give this to Erica. Erica, if you do have a question or anything we kind of talked about, and the first one to grab it in the chat will win.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to make sure that we covered it though. Like I want to make sure like we actually.
Well, you know what? While you're thinking of it, real quick, I do want to tell if anyone wants to know where to find it, if Westland is available in their state, if we haven't called it out, go to their website. They have one of the most transparent websites you have ever seen when it comes to what they create. I actually printed this out. Look at this piece of paper, guys. It's literally,
I love that you printed it.
Literally the mashing and fermentation for everything they do in their whiskeys. I mean, this gets down to mash size, strike water temperature, number of washbacks, malt storage. It's insane. If you guys want to know anything what's in this bottle, it's there for you. So definitely go check out the website. It's at the bottom of the screen, westlanddistillery.com.
Name. Can we do a malt question? Is that too chemistry?
Yeah, let's do a malt question.
Name 5 of the 6 malts that we use.
Oh, 5 of the 6 malts. Everyone's using the Google machine right now.
I know. I'm like, don't Google it.
Yeah.
It's okay.
All right. So the first one that I see in my chat that names it will get the 3 samples. We'll get the 3 samples in the chat and the hat, I should say.
Yep.
I've got another one already.
Oh wow, Joseph Zeidner after it.
Whoa,
Joseph Zeidner.
Joseph, man.
Select Pale, Munich Malt, Extra Special Malt, Pale Chalt. And is that right?
Yeah, he nailed it. Yeah, he's
Nailed
right on.
it.
Joseph Zeidner.
Fast.
And then I love Scott, who this is the chocolate fudge.
That's pretty solid.
Yeah.
I love you guys. I miss y'all.
Hey, Scott, if you're not doing anything, when we say goodbye to Erica and Chris, if you're interested and you want to stay on live with me a little longer, let me know. Shoot me a text. Maybe we could stay on and hang out and talk some more whiskey. All right, Joseph Zeidner, shoot me an email at themashanddrum at themashanddrum@gmail.com. If you're listening, Joseph, congrats, buddy. And he said you could come in. All right, cool. I will drop the link in the chat. Scott, hold on one second.
Chris, you have a question?
Yeah, it's a pretty nerdy science question though. So I mean, I feel like I'm just gonna want to throw something out there. I mean, I feel like it's an easy one, and it's something I definitely said. So my question is, what are the 2 enzymes that are commonly found in barley during the mashing process for barley?
Oh my God.
It's the super obvious ones.
All right, so Joseph Zeidner, he's winner 1.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, Jason Coates nailed it.
Jason Coates got it.
I mean, Michael Gomez was also. I mean,
right on. Michael and they both got it at the same time.
I gotta see.
I got a bunch of hats, so I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. We're good.
All right. So Jason Coates got it. All right. So those 2, Joseph. Jason Coates knows how to get in touch with me. Joseph Zeidner, shoot me an email, and so those 2 will be getting. And I'll reach out to you guys, and I'll send you their information. Yep. I'm going to get them 3 samples, 1 of each of this, and you guys can send them a trucker hat. So thank you so much.
Love it. Yeah.
And let's see what else. Congrats, guys. That was awesome. Listen, I want to thank both Erica and Chris for coming in.
Mom Esther.
Yeah, my mom Esther. Yes, Esther. Mom Esther.
Oh, you guys are cracking me up. I needed this.
Yeah. So I do want to thank you guys so much for coming on and talking. This was a wealth of information. I'm actually going to have to go back and watch it myself to take notes and kind of flush everything out here. But I wanted to say thanks to everyone and everyone for watching and hanging out.
This is awesome.
If you guys want to hang out tonight, still a little bit longer, we're going to have Scott from Scotch Test Dummies come in and maybe talk a little bit more whiskey with us. But Eric and Chris, I don't want to keep you any longer. You guys have been on here for an hour and a half, but I really wanted to thank you for all the information. This was a blast. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
All right, Scotch Test. I'm watching this. I'm watching what you guys say after I get off. So nice. Bye, you guys.
Bye,
cheers.
everyone.
Everybody
Cheers,
stay well.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. That was freaking awesome. I'm gonna wait to welcome in Scott from Scotch Test Dummies in a little bit. Gonna be hanging out. Congrats to Joseph and congrats to Jason Coates, my doppelganger. I figured it's still a little early. I'm kind of wide awake, so might as well hang out a little bit with you guys a little bit longer here. I did want to, let's see here. Where are some couple things I wanted to try? Steve A says going to be a long night. Not too long, but I definitely wanted to hang out a little bit longer. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. That was extremely educational. Eric and Chris are just awesome with everything I knew Erica was going to bring a lot of information, but you know, she was going to have Chris come in, who obviously got into the real down and dirty stuff with when it comes to you know, when it comes to the maturation and the enzymes and the distillation and everything that goes into it. Oh, there he is. Chris. No, Scott. Sorry.
Close.
Oh, sorry. You're right next to his. Oh, is Erica still in the stream? I want to say, is Erica still here? Hi, Erica.
I was trying to figure out how to even like log out, but I wanted to say hi to Scott really quick too.
Hi, Erica. How are you?
Hey, bud. How you been?
And congratulations on the wedding, because it was Beindorff.
Yeah, it's now Skolnick. It was Beindorff, which they're both incredibly hard to say. So I don't know if I, you know, did any better. I'm not a Smith or anything. So.
What's Skolnick?
You know what? I have no idea.
You don't know where your husband's from?
No, I know where he's from. Like he's from Minneapolis, but you know, like origination of like last name, don't know. Yeah.
I was drinking some of the peated with you.
See?
Yeah.
You guys are good to me. You guys are good to me. But I'll let you guys talk amongst yourselves, coffee talk. And enjoy, and good to see you, Scott.
Erica, thank you for setting this up. Really appreciate it. Always love having you on. Anytime you want to come on again, please let me know.
You got it. I've got all the whiskey in the world, so I'm happy to do it.
Not a bad way. Yeah.
I had to grab one of our trucker hats after you.
Dude, I'm game. I'll give you my email. Yeah, let's. I want one. Yeah. I'll trade you.
Yep.
I'll trade you. All right.
Yeah, when I get more of my mash and drum hats with the barrel wood on the front, I'll send you one.
I love it. Trade you. Yeah.
All right.
Done.
Sounds good. Cheers.
Cheers, you guys. Bye.
So what's up, Scotty?
Not much, Jason. You?
You know, feeling good, drinking some Westland, hanging out. I figured I wasn't tired yet, so I'm kind of, you know, I still wanted to hang out.
I've got to start going just a little bit more the extra mile with our lives, because I like how you switch up your backgrounds. I mean, tonight you had Westland, you know, in there and stuff. Now it's like we just use the same wallpaper every time.
Yeah, they have like these templates that you can get, and so basically I do screenshots and I cut out where the windows where the people are, and then I just make a background to go with it. So.
You know what I do need to do, and Bart and I both have talked about it, just get like that little intro video and even like an outro video to play, you know, with the live streams. So we have a lot on our to-do list.
That's one of the options I wish I hope StreamYard adds, because you can't really do it unless you share your screen.
Well, they've got it, but it's from what I hear, it's a lot smaller file. It's like 50 megabytes or 70 megabytes that it has to be smaller.
Oh, geez. Yeah. So I'm out, because my intro is like, it's like, that's why I use OBS when I'm doing that stuff. So.
Yeah. And even OBS, I need to get more. We haven't used it for a while. I just need to get more proficient with some of that stuff. But anyway, how about some whiskey?
Yeah, man. So you know what I wanted to do? You know what I wanted to try with you? Because I just got a bottle, and I also got a sample from my buddy Howdy Whiskey, is the Ardbeg Black.
Oh, nice.
I haven't tried it yet, and figured I just had something peated. Mm-hmm. I want to try it real quick. I'll be right back. I just got to go grab it. You can talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah. No, I will say with the Westland peated, if you haven't had it, it really reminds me. It's very Kalila-ish. Kalila 12. Just think medium peat, light to medium peat, lots of citrus, lots of vanilla along those lines. It's very nice. It's very, for an American single malt. They're doing a great job, and the peat is obviously they're importing their peat or their peated barley, so they're doing it right. And I forget who it was that asked earlier about why, you know, try to be like Scotch. That's one of the things with American single malts, and even with Scotch, is you can do so many different things with it. You know, using other than, you know, it's got to be aged in oak, but bourbon really has such strict standards, 51% corn, new charred oak barrels. You get cinnamons, you get caramels, you get vanillas, and you kind of get this standard range of flavor profiles that come out of that. And a few stand out above it. And then, of course, a few fall down. But with single malts, and especially if they can create the category, but allow the experimentation, allow the variation, and not have the strict standards, like Scotch, where you can use, different wine finishes, you can use different kinds of oak. It doesn't have to be new. It could be, used 2, 3, 4, 5 times before. So what American single malts could do is really just do the same thing that Scotland is doing, and just do this wide range variation of whiskeys.
So Scott, so when I was having them on and you popped in the chat, all these questions came running in my mind, because I know it's stuff that we had talked about when it came to, where's American single malt going? Why do they need a distinction? And I know Bart was interested in that too. I hope some of your questions got answered a little bit tonight.
Well, yeah, Bart's always pushed for. He wants regulation. He wants a category. He wants American single malt defined. I'm like, why define it? Just leave it wide. Just leave it open.
Yeah.
But I mean, even the industry and Westland included, McCarthy's. We've had McCarthy's on, and Daniel with the Whiskey Vault, Whiskey Tribe down in Texas. Even some of the Texas industry and stuff with the malts that they do, there's a lot of people that really want it defined, American single malt. I think so. It's not, you don't want it abused. You don't want false labeling, or people misleading, people, consumers buying it. So I suppose you do want some sort of regulation, but I agree with what Erica was saying, and you were saying as well. And that's, don't make it too strict. Let's leave it open, and let's allow for some experimentation.
You want to be able to utilize that creativity, from different malts, especially, using the attributes from where you are, where you live. Erica was talking about terroir and using some of the different trees that are just ubiquitous to whatever area you're in. So I think that plays a big part in it. Thanks, Anita. Thanks for coming in. Let's see. Dark Meat Chicken. Here in the U.S., are distilleries allowed to add coloring to other whiskeys other than bourbon?
Yeah, I would imagine so, because no, bourbon cannot add coloring, can they?
Yeah, bourbon you can't.
There's really not too many regulations that I know of with whiskey. And that's when you buy a bottle, you're in the liquor store and you find something and it's got American or just a whiskey on it.
Eric, to answer that, I would say it's a wisp. The peatiness in the Westland, it's barely there. You don't really get it on the nose. You get it more in the back end of the palate. You could taste some of that smoke, but it's not nearly as potent as you think it might be.
I was trying to think the Michter's. I don't have it here. Michter's makes, their American, or what do they call it? The unblended whiskey.
Yeah, the American whiskey. Yeah.
But a lot of times when you see that on something made in America, a lot of times it's almost the bourbon profile, but they're not using virgin oak. A lot of times they're using prior filled barrels, so they can't call it a bourbon. Yeah.
All right. So Ardbeg Black. After you've had it for a while, what's your take?
Let's get into it here.
Yeah,
now,
I'm going to pour this here. I just found a bottle of it, but I've been waiting to. I got sent a sample like right before the bottle came here to Ohio, so I grabbed one based on some really good reviews. I've heard more mixed reviews than positive, but this is probably the most positive I've heard from the committee releases the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And actually, I haven't paid too much attention to what other people have been saying about it. I don't know what I really enjoy it. I find it more along the lines of the Dark Cove. It's that darker sherry influence. To me, it's broken away from the drum and grooves both back towards not as good. It's not as good as Dark Cove. Don't get me wrong.
Okay,
but it's pushing that way.
So this is Pinot Noir casks from New Zealand.
Yeah.
So there's no real sherry influence. This is all just Pinot Noir.
Yep, Pinot Noir.
All right.
And it is aged. All I've heard and seen is that it's mature Ardbeg that's then aged for 5 years in the Pinot Noir casks, which is quite long. Yeah, it's quite a long maturation.
That is a long maturation considering. Yeah. AJ Lopez, thank you so much, man. Comes in with a $10 super chat. I like Balcones American Single Malt definition. Mash fermented, distilled, aged, and bottled in America from 100% malted barley. No barreling restrictions, though. Used oak or other woods are A-OK. Yeah. Oh, I have to learn how to say black.
Yeah, I was going to say Rebecca is right. It's black.
It's black. All right, so let's dive into this one because I haven't tried this yet. So
the nose, just the peat. The peat is the first thing I get. Now I'm getting a sweetness, rich. You can tell it's definitely a wine cask influence of some sort.
I definitely get kind of a grape soda type a nose on this. Yeah, it's very grape to me. It's not so much berry as it is grape.
Yeah.
But very sweet. Almost like strawberry shortcake-ish a little bit.
Okay. That's thanks. I just had strawberry shortcake over on Easter Sunday.
Mm.
But my wife put strawberries, raspberries, and blackberries on it.
Oh, nice.
That was good too. But yeah, throw all that in there.
Yeah.
I didn't say blackberries here.
Yeah, blackberries. Yeah, there's definitely some there's a little bit of nuttiness there too.
I was a little disappointed at 50.7 ABV. I thought that was a little low. If this was truly cask strength, 50.7 seems a little low, especially for considering it's probably, just guessing, 10 to 12 years old, maybe a little older. 50.7 seems a little low ABV wise for what it.
So you think this is one of the older committee releases that they've done in the recent memory? Or the committee releases you think generally are there committee releases generally around 10 to 12?
It's hard to tell. I don't know, but when they say it's already mature Ardbeg, I would think it's probably at least 5 years old.
Yeah.
And then it's aged for 5 years at least. So, and I think when you taste it here, when I taste it, I think I said in the review, I'm guessing it's 12 to 15 years old, somewhere in there, maybe. It's still got a lot of that good peat characteristic to it.
But I agree. You could tell that this has some age on it. It's not that punch you in the face peat. This is a little bit more rounded, and that cask influence definitely makes a big difference on here. I like the nose a lot. I mean, I'm getting, like you said, the blackberries. I'm definitely getting kind of a shortcake type thing going on, but a lot of also that grape, that grape soda note is delicious.
Yeah. Woo. And I remember now too, one of the notes that I had was a toasted raspberry s'more, or like a toasted s'more with raspberry drizzle on it. The concentrated raspberry, where it's like what do they call it, where you boil it down and the water evaporates out of it, thickens it up.
All right, so the first sip I had, I didn't get much of the Pinot Noir influence. My second sip, though, yeah, there it is.
Well, see, and I don't know I haven't had Pinot Noir. I don't know what Pinot Noir is, but there's a definite wine influence. It feels darker, more along the lines of sherry. And Eric Waite had heard. Fact is, when we reviewed it, I said, I don't know what Pinot Noir is. Bart says, yeah, we're going to have to ask Eric Waite.
Claire the Third says it's Dr. Pepper.
Reduction. Yeah. Reduction. A raspberry reduction.
Yeah. My grandmother used to make this sesame seed candy dessert. And I get this on a lot of ultra aged sherried scotches, where she used to just take some grapes and reduce it all the way down and then drop a bunch of sesame seeds in there. And then she would pour it out. And then once it cooled, it became like a sesame hard candy. And I'm getting a little bit of that influence, not as intensely as I do in the Dark Cove, but there is a little bit of a wave of that in the glass.
Whew.
Oh, Claire was just pointing out your shirt.
Yeah. Now, and I even pulled out, I've got the drum, and I pulled out, when you have them side by side, the color is quite a bit different. You can tell the
yeah, let me grab it. I have the drum right here.
Yeah, I'll grab it too. But you can see the Pinot Noir influence on the black.
The black. I gotta work on my sheep call, apparently. Oh my God, the color difference is insane.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if that'll come through on the live or not. The black, compared to the drum.
Yeah, you can definitely see it.
Yeah, which the drum was rum cask.
Yep,
it's a little bit lighter. When you have them here side by side, you'll see it. Just the lighter sweetness and stuff following in with the peat. The black, though, what have you seen as far as what other people think of it or what they're saying? I mean, the thing is, with any whiskey, you have some people that love it, some people that hate it.
I was actually surprised more by Eric Waite's take on it. He said he was having a hard time picking up the Pinot Noir, which is surprising because he is a wine guy.
Yeah. He was, well, and see, I even talked to him about that because he was, I mean, he's so looking for those Pinot Noir notes. He wasn't necessarily saying it was a bad whiskey. He liked it.
Yeah.
He couldn't find the Pinot Noir, which I think that when you take an Ardbeg whiskey, it's so heavily peated, and any wine influence, the Dark Cove, can you say that's Methuselah Oloroso,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's all you know is you get the darkness and the fruity characteristics to balance out that peat. If you have that, then you got something.
Yeah, and I think that was it with Eric and the Pinot Noir.
Clad the Third is asking where's this. I'm gonna grab my Supernova too and do a comparison here.
We never got a Supernova. We never even saw it around here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This came to Ohio pretty quickly, but I bought this when we were in Texas. When I was with Matt, Whiskey Crusaders.
Really?
Yeah, we were at a store and I grabbed this.
Huh.
Let me clean out my glass here a little bit.
I noticed Matt, Whiskey Crusaders, didn't tell me nothing about or tell Bart anything about that bottle. Of course, Bart probably wouldn't want it because he just wants Ardbeg 10.
Yeah, I see that. He really just compares everything to Ardbeg 10. So,
oh, thank God someone else sees it.
Hey, what's up? David Jennings is in the house. All right, he says. All right, so this is so Supernova is, let's see. It doesn't actually contain any whiskey that went to space. It's just supposed to be just an intense smoky experience on the Supernova.
Well, that's a recreation of the original Supernova.
Yeah.
But was it the Supernova that went to space?
Oh no, wasn't it? No, it was the
It wasn't the Supernova.
Yeah, what was the name of it that went to space? I'm trying to remember.
Someone's gonna put
someone
it in.
will know. Yeah, someone will know.
Yeah.
Revealing. Yeah, let's see. Revealing Smoky Stimuli, Ardbeg Supernova Drinker. Okay.
Galileo.
Oh, Galileo, there it is.
Yep. DC got it. Mark Reyes wants to know Ardbeg 10 or Lafroig 10 for a noob. Either one. I mean, it kind of depends what you've had in the past or what you like. Ardbeg 10 will kind of bring a little bit more earthy, muddy type peat, I think. Lafroig's a little bit sweeter, a little bit more of the bourbon cast comes through with Lafroig, maybe even a little bit lighter peat than the Ardbeg, but both good.
Which one do you get Fruity Pebbles on, Hattie Whiskey? AJ Lopez has a question, says, so bourbon question for y'all. Is Knob Creek Quarter Cask really super oaky. I want an oak bomb, but I also want it to have classic knob.
Been a while since I've had the quarter cask, and we've had that one in the past.
Yeah, I would say that the quarter oak doesn't necessarily give you a ton of more oak. It gives you more oak tannins. So any spiciness or any oak tannin that you don't get from the regular Knob Creek, you definitely get it in the quarter oak. So if you like something with a little bit more of an oak tannin bite to it, then you'll like the quarter oak.
You know, I'm not good to ask about oak though, because I like the oak. So nothing really stands out for me. Bart, anything that's aged too long. Most of the Knob Creeks, Bart has not cared for just because they're pretty oaky to begin with.
Yeah,
but I like it, and to me, the oakier the better. You know, some of the Orphan Barrel 22, 23, 24-year-old rhetorics. I love those. The
22, I think, was magical. The rhetoric.
Yeah, but I mean, there's so much oak in those.
Yeah, the 22 or the 23, either of those were so good.
I love it.
The 25, I wasn't that crazy about because they dropped the proof in it and they upped the age. So I feel like the older ones where the proof was a tiny bit higher, but you still had an over 20-year experience were better than the newer ones.
Yeah. Bart was really put off by that Dickel 13-year bottle in bond.
That was one of the best reviews I watched.
Man, I'll tell you what, I absolutely love that thing.
Yeah, he's like, dude, he's like, I can't. And you're like,
Oh, I'm like, it's so oaky and so good.
Oh my God. So yeah, the Ardbeg drum compared to the other two, this is just, I mean, it's really light, very, very fruity, but just not as inviting as a nose as you would want an Ardbeg.
Right.
The Supernova is right. I mean, even from color, if you look from here to here, Ardbeg drum is literally the lightest. Supernova is like right in the middle, and then your Ardbeg black is the darkest easily.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Supernova, I could see why you would get Fruity Pebbles.
What's the ABV on the Supernova release?
The Supernova is 53.8.
Wow. I've contemplated. I've seen. I've checked Wine Searcher. I keep checking it periodically, looking for more black. And I found there's some available for $2.99, and I've still contemplated getting another bottle just to have in reserve of it. Yeah,
I'm not a fan of the drum. The Supernova isn't. I don't think there's any sort of. I think that's all ex-bourbon. There can't be any sort of. Wine or sherry finish on that, because that is just an absolute smoke, just ready to kick you in the nuts. And then you have all the fruit flavors and the sweetness of this black. Yeah, really good.
Yeah, and it's the same. I mean, I can tell you there's a heavy, wine influence on this, and that it feels like a darker wine. I get those darker fruits, but I mean, I can't tell you it's Pinot Noir.
No, I couldn't tell you either, but you could definitely tell there's some kind of grape or wine influence to it.
Yeah, and I don't know that I couldn't even tell you. Well, it's not Oloroso. I mean, it's just it's a good wine influenced Ardbeg.
Yeah, and I would agree. This is probably the closest thing. Dark Cove committee release. There's nothing close that I've had close to it, but this is probably the closest committee release I've had to it in a while. Yeah. It's good, man. And I don't know. I have to put it up against Ugadale. I know Ugadale has the sherry. Is Ugadale wine or sherry? I can't remember.
It's sherry.
Sherry, okay.
Yeah. No, I said sherry, not Siri.
What do you want to be reminded about?
DC says, "Isn't the black a line bottle now?" Yeah, each year they'll come out with the committee release first, which is going to be a higher ABV, and it'll have the red little stamp on there. That's for their show you as the committee release, and then also generally the label is white. This one being at 50.7%, one of the main gripes is the standard release of black is coming out, and I think
is that going to be 46?
46 or 47%. So I mean, it's only slightly lower ABV than the committee release.
Wow, so you're paying all that much for that?
Yeah. Now, what'd you pick yours up for?
Mine was 130 here in Ohio.
That's really good. I'm 149 here. And I was surprised. I was literally, Bart, and it was a Sunday. Bart and I were doing a live stream at like 2 in the afternoon, and liquor stores here on Sundays open up at noon. And so I thought, well, I'm going to run clear out east on the east side of town to this one store I haven't been to for a while. And went out there, and I walk in right there, sitting on the shelf is one bottle Ardbeg Black. And I was like, holy crap, look at that. And I took it up, and I'm like, hey, you checking out? And even the cashier's like, oh, where'd you get this at? I go, it's on the shelf. She goes, I don't know if that's supposed to be on the shelf. I'm like, oh no, come on.
You gotta love when that happens.
Yeah. So she called a manager over there. He goes, where'd you get it at? And I said, it was on the shelf. I go, there's a price tag, a sticker there for it. So he went and looked. He comes back, well, I guess it's yours. He goes, we only got one of them. Like, good.
How do you whiskey? Yeah, I do have a CR Dark Cove, and it's glorious.
I still got one sealed.
Yeah, you just got one sealed. Wow. Yeah, the one that I have open is very. I mean, there's not much that I've taken out of there. It's so good. I drink that sparingly.
I marked my sealed bottles. I put a pink label on the top of it.
Yeah,
because my wife will come down and pour me something once in a while, like a blind tasting. And so if it's got a pink deal on it, she's not supposed to open it.
That's a good way of doing it. I gotta do that when my family comes over here for holidays. They always get into my shit. Like,
I can see her. I'd be tasting. I'd be like, God damn, this is good. What is it? Oh, some Ardbeg Dark Cove or something. I'd be like, no.
Howdy Whiskey says, I have one sealed, but I want to taste it so bad. Dude, open that shit up. You are missing out, man. You got to try that stuff. It's amazing.
Well, and I think, we had an open bottle at Bart's, and I think we've killed it. I think the open committee release is gone. He's got a standard a standard Dark Cove, not the committee release that's open. And then he's got one sealed committee release as well. Neither one of us wants to open the last one. There is, I think it's Abbey or Whiskey Barrel or Abbey Whiskey has Ardbeg Dark Cove committee release. It's $500. I've seriously considered getting another one so I can open one.
You savage.
But not right now because with the tariffs right now.
Oh my God. Yeah, you're gonna get killed.
Yeah, they say that it's going to make it a $600 and some bottle with the tariffs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy, man. What's happening in the chat here?
Scary Pepper says, cheers to both of us, Jason and Scott.
And Scary Peepers in the house. How you doing, Scary?
Scotch or bourbon? That's the question.
Oh, is that what what he's guessing on what he's going to drink tonight?
No, for us? What is it for us? Scotch.
Bourbon will always be my first love, but the last year or so I've been getting more and more into Scotch. I have a very selection of Scotch ranges that I really like, whereas bourbon, I could probably try anything from everywhere and find mostly something I like in most of them.
I'm Scotch, and I've been debating quitting bourbon because I'm tired of just the standard profile.
Yeah,
the ones that are really good are few and far between. You know, and it's kind of like, okay, yeah, it's another bourbon. Let's move on to the next thing. But. And really, a lot of my bourbon cues I get from a lot of the other reviewers as well. If I see you, my bourbon journey, Scott, Chad, and Sarah, if they're reviewing something they really like it, okay, maybe I'm going to pick it up and try it as well. But
yeah, I mean, it depends. There's some really, and it's like you said. I mean, a lot of different companies are making bourbon. I think the one good thing that bourbon has going for it is, a lot of people love the bourbon from Kentucky, and rightfully so. That's, where it's known for. It's where the heritage is. But, you start trying bourbons from all around the United States, and, you find some really interesting flavor profiles. So, and I think that kind of mirrors Scotch somewhat, because depending on where you go in Scotland, you have a bunch of different Scotches that, based on where you are, just have way different flavor profiles. And I think bourbon is heading down that highway a little bit too, with Texas and what's happening out west, and just depending on where you are, there's some different flavor profiles now. It makes it more interesting.
Well, and that's what I like with the American whiskey and the single malts is that they're gonna. I think some of that variant, some of that variation, experimentation can go on, and we can see some of those different things. So bourbon is just so strict, so tight.
Yeah, but you know what? It doesn't seem that tight as much anymore because you're seeing crazy amounts of cask finishing and different things they're doing with it, and they're still calling it bourbon. So I don't even know how strict or what the TTB is looking at anymore. You know,
did you get the Knob Creek 12-year yet?
Yeah, I did.
What did you think? Have you reviewed it?
Yeah, I actually just put it in. I just shot a video this week. I did a 12-year-old bourbon wine tasting, and that one was in it. For me, on the nose, it's a vanilla extract bomb, but on the palate, you get the oak influence. It's a very well balanced bourbon, easily one of my favorite Knob Creek. I'm glad they added it to the core range. It's going to be good. See, I was kind of if that was okay. I was kind of disappointed in it. It was still good, but it didn't feel like a 12-year-old bourbon. Oh yeah, you know why? Because it's only 100 proof, and I really feel like once you get into those 12-year-old bourbons, they really shine when they're at full proof or uncut, unfiltered, and that's not what Knob Creek 12 is, unfortunately.
Yeah, even if they'd have brought it out at 60, the one Knob Creek 12-year 120, it would have been probably better. But yeah, it didn't feel 12. It felt, like a standard Knob Creek release, really 8, 9, 10 years old, something like that.
That 12-year was good. I mean, yeah, it wasn't great, but I would easily take a Knob Creek single barrel 15 or 14-year-old.
Oh my God.
Over that any day of the week. Any day of the week. Yeah, it's not even close. Yeah. So I really enjoyed your that Bunnahabhain review you did. Holy shit.
Oh yeah. Hey, so I've got 2 that I'll get samples to you. That's that 30-year Marsala cask, and then that 20-year Palo Cortado. So,
that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any new Bunnahabhains for me to pick up recently, so I'm working on getting another. I need to get another 12 because my other one's getting dangerously low, and I want to get a new 18 because I still have the old 18, but there's about this much left in it. So
yeah,
I got to get myself another 18. That Pedro Jimenez Bunnahabhain I have is unbelievable. I got to send you one of those because you've never had that one.
Mm-hmm.
That one's really you would love that one. The sweet influence on that one is incredible. So
is that was it 14 year?
Yeah, about 14 years old. Pedro Jimenez, man, it's so good.
Yeah, I'll trade you my samples for yours.
That sounds good to me. Woo. Man, I like this black a lot. I think I like it better. I definitely like it better than the Supernova, and I like it way better than the Drum.
Well, and one thing I didn't even notice, we'd even shot the review and stuff, is that it's in black glass. I don't know if you noticed that.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, no, the others are green. The green, you can't, it's hard to tell how full it is.
Yeah, you see, there's the green. So this is the Supernova, and then there's the all black glass for the black. You need like a dipstick, like an oil, like in a car to find out what you got left.
Yeah, but in the store, I picked it up and bought it and everything. Didn't even notice. Didn't even really pay attention. And
you were just like, wow, that whiskey must be dark.
We shot the review. I wasn't even paying attention. Shot the review, talking about it. And then someone points out later, hey, that's black glass for black. I was like, oh shit, didn't even know. But no, yeah, I was really impressed with it. I think, like I say, I think it's more on the lines of the. It's getting back to that Dark Cove kind of profile anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
So, since the Dark Cove, we've had the Kelpie, the Grooves, the Drum, and then this one. So it's been 4 years since we've had this profile from Ardbeg. So somebody
that I talked to recently that has some inside info about Ardbeg said he didn't want to. Can I even say that? I don't know. He was hinting towards, I don't know what it will be, if it will be a committee release or anything like that. They're looking towards one of the next releases being a Mizunara cask.
Ooh.
So
very nice. Well, I bet you probably the next committee release, I'll bet you. I mean, most of.
I hope so.
Well,
I hope so.
You know, I didn't realize the 19-year Trey Van, as it's pronounced, is joined their core range, but it's going to be a batch release.
Yeah.
So, and maybe they're looking at maybe some experimentation with that.
Oh, maybe that's a good point.
Yeah.
Your review on the Old Forester got me all hot and bothered. Our Bourbon Club has 2 picks lined up. Oh, that's awesome, man. Howdy Whiskey, keep me posted on that if you could, if I could get in on one of those bottles or at least buy one. Yeah, I don't know if it's the barrel strength or the 100 proof. So I just reviewed 2 new bottles that are going to be. They're not available on stores. They're from Old Forester. They reinvented their store pick lineup, so they're private selections. So normally their selections were 90 proof. Now you have 2 choices when you go do a private select barrel. You can do 100 proof, or you could do a barrel strength unfiltered.
Ooh.
And the barrel strength unfiltered, I got to tell you, if you can't get your hands on a birthday bourbon, I mean, it could get pretty damn close. I think probably some of those honey barrels, non-chill filtered, between 130 and 135 proof, most of them. Those are going to be some really wildly sought after single barrels. I think you would. I mean, you like oak, so I think you would really like them because there was definitely some oak influence in there. Let's see here.
Yeah, I mean it does. Yeah, it doesn't put me off like some, but yeah.
Yeah. Karen B. Ford asked, "Have you seen the Bunnahabhain French brandy cask finish single malt whiskey? Just watched a review on it, but haven't seen it everywhere." I have not seen it. And brandy seems to be a finishing that I've been seeing pop up more and more, and not just on Scotch, but in bourbon too. Let's see. How about the new 5-year? Oh, how about the new 5-year Wee Beastie coming out in the next few weeks?
Yeah, and I think in the UK that may have already hit the shelves, so hopefully it shows up here fairly soon.
Yeah. Oh yeah, thank you so much, Richie Z. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, congratulations on that.
Yeah, I'm very close to 11,000 already. I'm hoping to hit that. I'm hoping to hit that by next week because I did my celebration for 10,000 during a live stream last week, but I was doing a head-to-head blind tasting with Michael Klein, and I wasn't really paying attention. So I'm hoping next week, if I hit that 11,000 mark, I'll do a proper celebration of hitting those milestones. So,
man, just remember, take us with you when you get big, baby.
Let's see.
You're moving up good. You guys and the Bourbon Junkies as well, both blowing up, doing good.
The Bourbon Junkies like blew up like in the matter of 2 months, man. They have quite the following. Their live streams, I mean, they're getting like 400 people watching. It's insane. They built a really good brand and community around them.
Yeah. Yep. Great guys. We met them down in Austin. So
yeah, they're awesome, man. I love hanging out with those guys. But yeah, my channel's a little bit too nerdy, I think, for most people. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, to get from and then you have Whiskey Crusaders that just went to 1,000. So they finally passed that 1K mark. That happened during one of my lives, which I was really excited for them. I was like, everybody go and subscribe, and they hit the 1,000 right there. It was awesome. So they could finally get I think they're waiting to get super chats. I don't know if they could get it yet, or I think
I was on there the other night. They were live. I even sent them $10. So.
Okay, there you go. Perfect.
I'm gonna put the drum back.
Yeah, the drum definitely needs to go back on the shelf.
But black, I might, as I sit here and sip, I might be online here ordering one of those bottles for $2.99 here pretty quick.
Which one's the black?
Yeah.
Well, I could. There's probably more here in Ohio. I could probably get you one for a good price if you want.
Oh. Yeah, let me know.
Yeah,
I can trade you a Bunnahabhain 18 for one, probably at least.
If I go to the I usually go to the store still on Fridays. If the same store that I got this one, if they have one, I'll grab you one.
Yeah, because I'd take another one for sure.
Let's see here. Congrats again on the 1K, Matt. Oh, is Matt in the Seeing this. Oh, Matt is here.
He was earlier. Is he? Yep,
Yeah.
he's still here. Yep.
Let's see. He said, "We love all the nerdy stuff." Okay, good. At least you don't get smashed for your live streams. Yeah, I try not to. Sometimes I get tipsy, but I usually sign off before I get too bad, because if I fall to the floor or get too drunk, there's nobody to run the stream. It'll just go. Yeah, so Whiskey Crusaders is having they're doing a Saturday live stream to celebrate, correct? That's going to be awesome. Can't wait to tune in for that.
On what now?
For their 1,000 subscriber live stream.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yep. I've seen a couple emails come in with that. So
yeah.
Man, I'm being hit. I got one tomorrow night. I think it's on Instagram, though. Might be on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And then Friday, Mark Gillespie on Whiskey Cast invited me on.
That's awesome.
Well, invited us on, but Bart's working.
Oh, is he? Okay.
So
yeah, this is true, Mark. I get drunk and I fall down.
Yep.
Have you seen that video of me falling on my head?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've seen that. Was it the Elijah Craig barrel proofs?
It was after.
Yeah.
I think the whiskey went to my feet and I didn't feel anything under it. So when I stepped, I fucking went right down. Actually, for any of you of my Patreons that are watching, I just posted a blooper reel that I put together, that I posted today, that I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to be posting blooper reels of my reviews, probably like every couple weeks once I build up enough content to make one. So you Patreons get to see me, fuck up more and more. It should be fun. Yeah, the blooper reels are pretty funny because I can't, I start saying shit and then I'm trying to like say words. Like, so one of the ones that I was having trouble with when I did I did a video for best scotches for bourbon lovers. And there was one thing when I had to say the word casks like over and over, and I couldn't fucking say casks. I just kept saying casks or cack, or I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with me? And I'm saying like I can't say casks, and then I'm finally just like too many casks. I don't know what to say anymore. Oh my god. Richie Z, we are now 1/3 into 2020. Do you and Scott have any couple working contenders for bourbon and scotch of the year yet? Wow. You know what though? I mean, with bourbon, it's hard because not a lot of the sought after really good bourbons release until the fall about. So it's hard to judge. But as far as bourbons that have stuck out so far this year, nothing has really like blown my mind yet. I can't.
That's because it's bourbon. It's bourbon. It's the same thing.
Hey, listen, if it wasn't for bourbon, your scotches would have no flavor.
I'm going to get some people fired up. No, I've had some good ones. I just can't think right off the top of my head. I'll tell you what, there's one I haven't reviewed yet, and I just picked it up down in Dallas a month ago or so, but it's a Deanston. It's a 16-year-old organic Oloroso, and it is delicious.
Holy shit, that sounds incredible.
It was $105, and I picked up one bottle, and I've been thinking about sending my wife's cousin back to get another one. It was on the shelf.
I think right now the top bourbon for me that I've had this year was the Elijah Craig A120, the barrel proof.
I haven't even seen that one yet, so now I'll pick those up as I see them, and I haven't seen that one in our area.
Yeah, that's the best A batch that they've done as of late. The Larceny barrel proof I liked. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
I think there's better batches to come.
Now, see, I would take that over the Knob Creek 12 year. I like the Larceny barrel proof.
I would take that over the Knob Creek 12 year. But I thought the Larceny barrel proof was very like 2-3 notes to me, and it wasn't. I know you're going to say it's a bourbon, but. But I've had barrel proof wheated bourbons. You get into the Wellers and there's so much more depth of flavor to it. I'm hoping that's what I was going to get a little bit out of, but I never got those fruit flavors that you get from a wheater. I got a lot of Cracker Jack, chocolate, and typical Heaven Hill notes from the Larceny. So
I'm just going back there in January. We did Rebel Yell 10-year single barrel. That was from what we've got so far going this year. That would be in my top ones.
Oh, Nick Foles, yeah, Stag 13. I would definitely put up there.
Stag Junior.
Stag Junior 13. Yeah, definitely like that. That's a good call out. As far as scotches go, my number one scotch I've had so far this year has to be the Octomore 10.4 Virgin Oak, which is French oak casks. There's that word again, cax.
Amazing. Yes, so far, besides that Deanston, 2 peateds for me, that Ardbeg Black would probably be in there, and then the Lafroig Carchus Triple Wood, which was actually a 2019 release, but we didn't get it till February. But
Daniel Kerber, the Mash and Drum. I haven't had scotch in years. Just picked up a Monkey Shoulder for $22, but haven't cracked it yet. Are there any other beginner scotches you guys would suggest? Yeah, definitely go watch my my scotches for bourbon drinkers. You can definitely find. I think the Glenfiddich 14 is good for a bourbon drinker because that's all ex bourbon, and then you have some Kelvin Cooperage barrels that they use in that, right out of Louisville. So you have some familiar flavors in there. I always recommend Compass Box Spice Tree because that's like a high rye bourbon for a scotch because it's got a lot of spice on it. I always recommend Bunnahabhain 12 for something a little bit more interesting. But definitely go watch that video. There's some good options in there. Oh yes, the Redbreast 27. I'm still waiting for that. I have a feeling that's going to be up there once I get it.
Yeah. I'll try to get a bottle of that as well. Now they've introduced that into their core line, so it should be. Yeah,
it should be available eventually.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah. It's not like a limited run where there's only 200 bottles, so you better snag one.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. Speaking of Mark Gillespie, though, with Whiskey Cast, and he's a big Irish whiskey fan and Redbreast fan, but he gave that a 96 or a 97 or something like that.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but ridiculously good things about it. So I ordered it from 2 different stores here. So I'm hoping Friday when it comes in that I'll be able to pick it up. We'll see. I don't know. Everything's been a little bit delayed here because of what's going on.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a couple of other bourbons that are coming out that I'm excited for. The Wild Turkey is putting out a 17-year bottled and bond special release in their Master's Keep collection. That's supposed to be this year. I love Wild Turkey. You have, as far as recent releases coming soon, the new Blood Oath Pack 6 is coming out. That's it's a blend of bourbon finished in cognac casks, cognac barrels. I'm going to stop saying that damn word. So that should be pretty good. So yeah, there's some interesting stuff coming out. Just nothing has really hit the shelves yet. I've already heard good things about the new Old Forester birthday bourbon from a couple of people that got to taste it. So, but that's one of those bottles I always have a hard time getting a handle on.
Yeah, I've never had one, never seen one. The Wild Turkey I could have a chance at because I know even there's still Oloroso and the rye cask. Those are still around here, but so maybe I would have a chance at that 17-year Wild Turkey.
Yeah. Oh, Barn Door Wait, new Wild Turkey bottled and bond. When and where? Yeah, this year that's going to be their Master's Keep release. Is their 17-year bottled and bond. Which, bottled and bond is kind of cool to put on a bottle, but most of all, the Wild Turkey warehouses are bonded. So, but I will say that this is the first time that all the juice, according to David Jennings, Rare Bird 101, I think all the maturation was coming from their Camp Nelson F warehouse, which is where a lot of the really unique and delicious picks are coming from now. So if you've had a single barrel Wild Turkey, a lot of the really unique and delicious barrel picks are coming from Camp Nelson, the F warehouse. And that's apparently where all these barrels to make the 17 are coming from. So if anything, it should be pretty unique and pretty delicious.
I'd say once you got a Wild Turkey 17-year, you don't need to put bottled in bond on the label for me.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, bottled in bond is for something that's 4 or 5. Well, it has to be 4 years old minimum, but
yeah,
something that's 4, 5, 6 years old, and you want to know it's 50% ABV, put bottled in bond on there. But yeah, with a 17-year-old, that's 50% ABV. You don't need.
Yeah, Brett, I would agree. For what they charge, it should be cast strength. Yeah, I would love that 17, but they already did a 17-year that was cast strength. So in the Masters Keep collection, the black box, if you remember that one. So I think just doing it, I think what they wanted to focus on was bottled in bond, and also, aging it in that particular warehouse, because they get some funky flavors from that warehouse for whatever reason. Karen says the Belle Meade cognac is so good. Yeah, that's my favorite from their lineup, from their finished lineup, is the cognac. Have you had any Belle Meade stuff?
I've got a Belle Meade Oloroso.
Yeah,
it was a California exclusive. It was a single cask.
Yeah, the Belle Meade cast strength stuff, the Cask Reserve is really good. That's really great bourbon. I mean, it's MGP. Yeah, that's the sherry cask. I have the cognac cask, which is a blue label.
This one's 51.6%. But and this one, the Oloroso cask really comes through. Joseph Magnus, after a bottle's been open for a little bit, I start to get the wine influence.
Yes.
Most of the time, though, bourbon is such a strong profile, though.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of wine influence to really override it.
Yep.
But yeah, this one was very good, very good. And this was one that I think it was Bounty Hunter Wine had. Yeah.
Richie Z. I've had 2 Camp Nelson F warehouse, 4th floor, would pass on a 6th floor. Should I go back and get it with my mask on? Yep. I've been told that the higher the floors goes, the better the juice gets. So
do they put that on the label though?
Yeah, they do.
Do they?
Yeah, they're pretty transparent with a lot of stuff. Yep.
So look for the Camp Nelson 6th floor, huh?
You don't want to get a you don't want to get a camp. So the Camp Nelson A batches for the picks are fairly similar. The Camp Nelson, if it says C, N, and then F on it, you have a chance of getting something really unique and something funky and different, but still delicious. So that's where the good picks are coming. Aside from your regular warehouses, from the main campus, which is Warehouse A and Warehouse D, where just so many really good picks come out from. Warehouse D is kind of coined delicious because all the picks that come out are delicious from Warehouse D. Warehouse H, if you ever find one of those, that's got some like old dusty turkey notes in it, like wild turkey from like the 80s. It has like a funk to it.
Really?
Yeah. But the Camp Nelson, the F and the A picks are really the ones you're seeing now more often than not.
And AJ Lopez is asking about the Joseph Magnus cigar blend. It's very good. Now, the bottles that we've had, a couple years ago were $149, and the standard Joseph Magnus is $99. I prefer the standard Magnus over the cigar blend now for the money, but he's saying he can get one for $300. That's a little high.
That's high because retail is just under $200.
Or has it even gone up? Because they used to be $149. But
yeah, when they came out here in Ohio, they were about $170-ish, I think.
The regular Joseph Magnus is PX, Oloroso, and Cognac.
Yeah, I have it right there. You know what? I'm gonna grab that. I'm gonna finish off the night with that one.
Yeah, I'll grab that too. But then the cigar blend is Cognac and Armagnac.
Yep.
And brandy, I think.
But yeah, I mean it's perfect. It's perfect cigar finishes. So
I'm an Oloroso and PX man, which is probably why I just prefer the regular Joseph Magnus release.
Boop. America. You gotta love Matt.
America.
Yeah, Joseph Magnus. This is 100 proof. Yep, finished in cherry and cognac. It's one of my favorites. I know Eric Waite. This was his favorite bourbon when he did bourbon. I don't know if it was bourbon month or bourbon year or whatever he was doing. But
now the Bell Mead Oloroso that I have though, it's got a lot. The Oloroso has a lot higher. I mean, it's impacted it a lot more than the Joseph Magnus has.
Yeah, so Bell Mead tends to keep their for all their finishings, they keep the bourbon in there a good amount of time. I have a brandy cask finish that was a special release, and they kept that in there, I think, for almost 2 years in a brandy cask. So the freaking influence on that is insane. Wow. Okay, so this bottle of Joseph Magnus here is batch 6. So this is the one. But as this thing is open, the PX has started to rise to the top of this thing. That is what are those things called? I used to get them when I went to the movies. Oh no, not the movies. It's a cereal. Raisin Nut Bran.
Yeah.
Like the raisins that are covered in like nut coating, like sweet nuts.
Yeah.
That's what I get in that glass. It's like oatmeal cookie and fruit. Oh my God, that shit's so good.
Ooh, man, that is good.
I think I missed the question. Oh, yeah, Donald. Yeah, I have had it. I did try the pot still yet. Where is it? This one. The Teeling pot still.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, this is like just a delicious raw. I mean, this is earthy. It's an earthy Irish whiskey, but it's really good.
How many bottles you got? We're both pretty good at like, oh yeah, I got that one. We reach over here. You're like, oh yeah, I got that one.
Yeah.
How many bottles do you think you got in your collection, or what do you got in your? I guess you'd say on your shelves now.
I'm close to 500 now.
Yeah, I'm not too far behind that. If right around the same numbers.
Yeah, but you know what? I felt myself buying. I mean, I think we've talked about this. I bought a lot less recently.
Yeah.
It's like I don't see something. I used to just see something, and like if it was a pick or anything, I just buy it no matter what. I'm much more selective now. I just try to get things I want to review, stuff that I'm interested in. So stuff that I've seen lately, I've actually passed on unless it's like something really unique or a good pick. I'm just trying not to overdo it because a lot of the whiskeys, I'm by myself. I just don't get to it. So, as good as some of this, shit is,
Yeah, I agree. And the thing is with store picks, and as far as YouTube doing reviews, usually, there's not the return on investment there because there's so many variations or variances, and there's 300 bottles available of this store pick, and not a lot of people can get it or really care about what your tasting notes are, or that one that they can't get.
Yeah, I forgot how good this Joseph Magnus is. My goodness. It is like just pure coming off the peated stuff. Such beautiful like nuttiness and such intense vanilla extract. So good.
Sweet fruits.
Yeah, a lot of fruits.
If I had this blind right now, I might not even peg it as a bourbon because of that sweet. I don't know. Outside of like you said caramels, it just feels so sweet, like sherry wine influenced Scotch sweet.
Eric, I have opened it up. I do have. Yeah, it's actually upstairs. The Eric was really cool. He sent me a Johnny Walker rye cask bottle, and it's definitely my favorite Johnny Walker I've had so far. It's really good. It's really unique, different. You could definitely get the rye spice on it. It's really good.
I think I just did a bottle kill on that one not too long ago because I'd had that one for a while, and I was like, I need to kill that one off.
I was impressed with it. Probably my favorite next to the Johnny Walker Green.
I did. So as far as the last few weeks, some people have been quarantined, but we've had stay-at-home orders.
Yep.
I had gotten rid of a couple of bottle kills that I had because I was like, okay, this is a good time to get rid of some bottles. But since I've gotten rid of, me and the wife, Redbreast 15, that's a bottle kill.
Nice.
Redbreast Lustau bottle kill.
Wow, man, pounding the. Well, you said that the wife likes the Irish whiskey.
My first bottle, a Dickel bottle in Bond 13.
I'm sorry. I'm sure. You know, Bart was sad to see that go.
Yeah, I got a spare though over there. I had a Breckenridge port whiskey. Finished that one off.
How was that?
That's good. I like it. Yeah.
Okay.
Powers 3 Swallows.
Oh, okay, nice.
Still going. Hazelburn 13 Oloroso. I got a spare one of those though, so I thought I can kill that one off.
You've been busy, man. Hey,
well, I mean, they've only had 2 or 3 ounces.
Thank you, Eric W. Appreciate that, man. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate that.
How about an old gifted horse had to come?
Oh, dude, you had a gifted horse? Wow. Out of all those bottles, I was most impressed with that one. You don't see those around very much.
Well, yeah, not anymore, no.
Yeah.
But I thought I'm going to keep all my bottle kills, and then towards the end of this or at some point do an Instagram post or just a video on them or something. But
yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, I've killed a few bottles myself. I killed the first bottle of Weller Full Proof I had. I got rid of that. I killed a bottle of a Knob Creek store pick I had. That's gone. I killed an old bottle of Booker's because I was sick of looking at it. That's gone. I killed a older bottle of Rare Breed because I bought another one. I always have to replace Rare Breed. I killed a bottle of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, an old A batch, like an A. I think it was the A118. I killed that bottle. I killed my Lot 40 11-year cast strength rye. Killed that. So yeah, definitely been killing bottles, man. I think they know when they come up when they leave the whiskey room and go up to the kitchen that they're about to die. So,
you know, the thing is though, you got 500 bottles. I'm 450 and 500 somewhere in there. I like having that though, just for the reference. You know, I'm doing a live with you and you're like, oh, well, what about this? I'm like, yeah, I got it over here. Yeah. But you know, you kind of look, you're like, okay, this is 4 or 5 years old. There's only a little bit left and time to just.
Well, that's the thing. And, you know, and I don't know if it's like a subconscious thing and maybe you could tell me, but I feel like the bottles that you kill subconsciously, you know, it's one that you could get again.
Yeah. That too. If you want it.
If you want it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's like, I have a William Lee Weller up there that's pretty low, and I don't want to kill that anytime soon.
Well, and Eric Evanson is asking if I'd had a Powers John's Lane yet, which is their 12-year-old. I've had a couple, and I actually found it at a place, and it was $37 or $38. And
that stuff's really good.
Yeah. Of course, they had 3 Swallows for $37, and I think the John's Lane was $38. I bought one of both because I knew it was a good deal. And then the next weekend, I went back. I was going to get another one of the John's Lanes, and they had sold the other 2 that they had. So someone else was in there in that time frame that was like, yeah, that's because that's generally at least $70 to $80 bottle.
This may be inappropriate, but I thought if they changed the name of that to She Swallows, they'd sell a lot more bottles.
That's inappropriate.
Is that inappropriate marketing?
I'm contacting HR.
I'm getting kicked out. I'm losing my job tomorrow. Shit.
So how you been? I know you were busy a couple weeks ago with your job. Has it let up or still?
So on the weekends, we're kind of helping out with packing some boxes and doing some stuff to kind of get, masks. And so, I work in a healthcare industry. So we had a couple weekends where we were working, but for the most part, that's slowed down now. There's been more production, so we haven't had to go in. So yeah, I mean, it's been there's a lot of positive signs out there. So I just want to let everyone know that there is some positive things happening, no matter what you hear from the media. I know they like to report a lot of the bad news, but there is some good things happening out there. So the one bad thing though, is I will say, is that the vaccines that are close for this stuff is still maybe 9 months to a year out, because it has to go through all the testing, unfortunately.
But even at that, they're going to speed it up. You're talking 9 months to a year. That's being sped up. How long? Which, I mean, they're fast tracking it.
They are fast tracking it, but then, they have to do their due diligence. God forbid they break something out early and then people get nasty side effects, and that, that's it. So, what happens is now is that it's a matter of trying to slow down the cases, which is what all the states are doing, so they don't overflood the healthcare system and they allow people that really need the treatment in order to get it.
Right.
Plus the testing, which has been kind of a slow process to get tested for it, has been a slow go, but that's also been, from what I've been told, picking up also. So, I think as long as we, stay away from each other and follow the rules a little bit, it'll eventually start to come down. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we've reached, just from what I've been seeing, I think we've reached the peak, hopefully. But that doesn't mean abandon everything we've done and go back to normal tomorrow.
No, and I think a lot of the communications about that is tricky, because even though there are a few states that are doing really well, I could say Ohio is doing well. They're starting to level off the curve, but they don't want to say yet, like, hey, okay, everyone, let's go outside now, because you have to wait till a certain point where we're really down at the bottom of the bell, because that's if we let everyone out while we're here, then it's just going to go back up again. We have to wait it out, and you have to do your due diligence to stay inside and, follow the same practices that everyone else is doing great. So that's
how do you whiskey, says Scott. I know you like a cigar now and then. What's a bourbon or a whiskey you love the most while having a stick? Several choices here, but the thing is, to me, with a cigar, it's so strong, it's so powerful. Whatever you're drinking has to be strong and powerful to match it.
Yep.
One of the first pairings I did was I was in Dallas, and the first time I'd ever bought Redbreast Lustau. And we got back to the house. I was like, man, I'm going to have some of this with my cigar. And the cigar totally overpowered the Redbreast Lustau.
Yeah.
Which it should. So most of the time now, if I'm having a cigar, I'm going to have a cask strength or a barrel strength bourbon, or a sherried Scotch that's a higher ABV, or a peated Scotch that's a higher ABV.
Yeah, I find that peated Scotches go really well. And also, I think there are some finished ones that you could do. Like I said, that brandy cask that I had from Belmead, that one smells like a cigar on the nose. So that one actually does really well with it. But yeah, the higher ABV, I think the better. Or even if you don't like high ABV, it's got to be sweet, because you got to balance out that smoke.
Yeah, but just if you had a 40% though, if you had Jack Daniel's number 7, it's probably not going to pair real well.
No, I don't know how banana chips go well with cigars.
Even Johnny Walker Black Label 40%. I think you're going to have to me. If I grab a cigar, I'm grabbing whiskey. It's going to be something, either it's a Scotch or a bourbon that's barrel strength. Yeah. And then, like I say, it's either if it's a Scotch, it's sherried or peated. But most of the time, probably a barrel strength bourbon or a higher ABV sherried Scotch.
Yeah, and I feel like, and you would probably be a fan of this too, is like the real oaky bourbons, like something with some good age on it, go really well with cigars too.
Yeah, that could be. I haven't tried that, but yeah, you could be. Yeah, spot on with that. For sure.
A good oaky bourbon goes well. Like I have a Lux Row double barrel 12-year that's amazing with a good cigar. I don't drink cigars. I don't smoke cigars too often because it does do damage to my throat, I feel like, for like 2 days.
Yeah.
But yeah, every now and again when I'm in the mood, man. But I actually feel like I'm more in the mood during the winter for a good stick, with whiskey than anything.
Yeah, me definitely. Yeah, summertime, if it's 90 degrees or 100 degrees out, I'm not smoking a cigar.
Yeah.
Once it starts to cool off, it gets down into the 60s. You can sit outside and smoke a cigar. Yeah, I mean that's. I've been even known to layer up with the cold weather gear and sit out there, when it's 10 degrees or 20 degrees out and smoke a cigar. So
when my family was here for Thanksgiving, man, it was like it was about 4 degrees outside with a wind chill, and we got some good cigars. Went outside. We got some Elijah Craig barrel proof, and we went at it, man.
Yeah, that's a good one. I've smoked a cigar with ECBP before, so. Well, in fact, is the last one. It's been a couple of months, but I think I was drinking Macallan 12, which isn't even a high ABV, but it's a sherried Scotch.
Thanks so much, Eric W. It's enough politics and whiskey don't make. Are we talking politics, or are they?
No, the chat was.
Oh, the chat was okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Don't bring politics to the whiskey show.
Yep. No politics, no religion.
That's right.
There's two things Mama always said you don't talk about, and that's politics.
That's right. 2 things. Politics. All right, man. Well, I think I'm going to call it. I've been on for almost 3 hours here, so I'm going to call it night.
Yep.
Thanks for popping on, man. I really appreciate it. I know I was out that weekend. You asked me to pop on. I was like, damn, I always love coming on with you, so I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yep.
So, all right, guys. Well, thanks for coming on and watching for the full. All of you that stuck around, we've had about 100 people watch the entire time. So this was an awesome night. So thanks so much, guys. Catch me next week. We'll do a proper celebration to hopefully 11,000 subscribers, and that should be a lot of fun. And definitely tune in to Whiskey Crusaders this Saturday for their 1K celebration. So, cheers, guys, and stay safe, stay healthy. And I'll see you next time on the Mash and Drum. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.